So I will call to order the meeting of the Manchester-Essex Regional School District on Tuesday, January 13th. And to start our meeting, we will end up with public comment. If you're joining us online, if you have any public comment, please put your name and address into the chat. And then we'll start with in person, if we have any public comment in person. No? Okay. So we'll wait a minute here in case we have any public comment online. Again, please just put your name and address in the chat. All right, not seeing anything online, we will move on to our student reports.
Yes. Oh my gosh, no, you're good.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Excited to be back. Okay. First, obviously, we're coming off of break, so we're still doing school. Everyone's a little tired, a little sick, but we're all here. Exciting things. DECA, we just had I think it was the qualifying round, like their first preliminary round. They had 103 students go and 63 qualified for the next round, so that's very exciting. Parking, we have a new parking initiative to help like alleviate traffic and stuff, and it seems to be going really well so far. I've heard from a bunch of students that, wow, this is going to be so much better, so we don't have to deal with the line, and it seems really good. Winter sports are off to a really good start. I think we have a girls basketball game happening tonight. I already heard people are going, so that'll be good. And all of our games and practices are underway. In terms of stuff like music, we have the middle school concert coming up. I'm helping out with that. And then we have Drum Fest underway. Robotics had its kickoff for their season, so they've got their challenge and they're beginning with that. As well as things like debate has been having a lot of tournaments. So all of our clubs and activities are going pretty well. Sounds like we're doing pretty well. At our actual meeting, we discussed a little bit about the arts requirement, not necessarily like full year versus half year, but more what we thought about it. One of the like takeaways we got from it was naturally most students seem to take an arts class anyway. It doesn't seem like it'll directly impact most students taking specific courses, their ability to take other courses. So that was the big takeaway. Additionally, just on a more personal side note, there is definitely an interest already in the budget discussion. People are starting to talk about it and ask about it. We've just barely started. So the biggest thing I'm hearing a lot is for like stability. So please, I hope that you'll keep that in mind. It's definitely appreciated that everything is happening sooner and faster this year. But as the winter and springtime these past few years they've been bringing a little more uncertainty. I hope that we can keep stability as a top priority. So that's pretty much all I've got. And
thanks, Megan.
anything?
Anyone have any questions?
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Please tell everyone we will do our best. I don't have a specific chairperson's report, but welcome everyone back. Hope everyone had enjoyed holidays with friends and family, and had a good New Year, and welcome back to 2026. So moving right along to our warrants, I will make a motion to accept the financial memo dated 1/13/2025.
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And then I'll also make a motion to accept the minutes dated December 2nd, 2025 and December 10th, 2025. Was everyone was here at those moments, right?
I had sent something to Maria for December 2nd, but she's responded that she's noted it. So as long as that change is made, I have no concerns.
That change is already made. There should be already.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, great. Any other questions or concerns?
We need a motion, so.
I think I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from December 2nd, 2025 and December 10th.
Seconds.
Thank you. Any additional questions or concerns? All those in favor? It's also unanimous. Moving right along to our subcommittee reports, I think first up, we will have elementary facilities and the ESBC updates.
We have met since our last meeting. We've met twice, in fact, since our last meeting. So on December 15th, we met at EES. We approved vouchers for the design team and the OPM, still on budget. We discussed the outcome of community meeting number 3, which we've already reported on in this setting. The big topic of conversation that night was evaluating the design alternatives and the preliminary cost ranges with that. So we've had a rubric that looks like this, like I've shown you before, for the locations that we used. This was a look at the options of code upgrade, add reno, and new construction for EES pre-K to 5 and EES pre-K to 5, MMES 4 to 5. I mean, pre-K to 3, MMES 4 to 5, so the split option. And add reno at Memorial so that all kids pre-K to 5 will go there. It was a first look only. We talked about the rubric, decided whether we needed to add a couple spots or clarify some of the items on there. You can see by kind of the red and green on the sheet. These are all on the website. You're able to access them. That there are some front runners, but again, this was just an opening conversation, and the cost ranges that are listed at the bottom, if you do access that, just to be very, very clear, those are for comparative purposes only. Those are broad estimates of total project costs. They do not factor in MSBA reimbursement, and they also don't factor in MSBA clawback if we were to move forward with the memorial site. So that was the bulk of the conversation, but there were no decisions. It was just review and understanding of that. And then on January 6th, we met remotely. And the first thing we did was took a vote to approve the preliminary design program, all 3,252 pages of it. The table of contents kind of gives you an idea. So that's the one of 2 major submissions for this section of the feasibility study. I'm still learning all this, so stop. It helps me to have to take it in and spread it out. But so in addition to the educational program and the space summary that we all looked at and discussed here, there's evaluation of existing conditions, all sorts of site development requirements, preliminary evaluation of alternatives, and an appendix with loads of different required contributions. And so this is a really detailed submission that the team has worked really hard to put together. And we were able to take a vote and unanimously approved the preliminary design program. My understanding is it's being submitted tomorrow. Is that right? It says on there for submission January 14th. Sorry. Is it already gone in? Okay. So by January 14th, maybe. So that's complete. And that's a really huge step. And we're really grateful to everyone who put all that time and effort in. It's a big one. And then from there, we went into a more detailed discussion of grade configuration. So kind of using this rubric, the same kind of chart, same chart. We started our discussion of what do we need to carry forward into the next step of this process and the next step of study. We discussed the good, the bad, and the ugly of each of these items. And in the end, we ended up taking 2 straw polls after considerable discussion. The first was to remove Memorial site as a contender for the pre-K through 5 all merged at Memorial. We took a straw poll on that, and we unanimously agreed that we would like to remove that from consideration moving forward. And then the second straw poll we took was to remove all of the split options, the pre-K through 2 at Essex and the 4 to 5 at Memorial. And that straw poll also was unanimous to remove those options. We did not take a final vote that night. That was to get a sense of where the school building committee was. That gives this committee an opportunity to weigh in, also gives the public an opportunity to weigh in. I will tell you, I haven't received any feedback other than in support of this path. from community members at this point. But we will take a final vote at our next meeting on January 26th. The consensus was that going into the next phase with options that we don't think are viable, either educationally or politically, doesn't make sense, and it's not a wise stewardship of the resources available to us for the feasibility study. So that's where we are now. We also had a brief schedule update that timeline here, just pushing the vote for the debt exclusion out a little bit, potentially to December 2026, December instead of October, November timeframe, giving a little bit more time, because the next step we have is the preferred schematic report and then schematic design. And so we're moving right along, but just the team felt like a little bit extra time built in there would make sense. So that's where we are today. Miss anything?
Fantastic job.
Thanks.
So, sorry.
Yeah.
If a final vote is taken next week and that's usually what's left then?
So what's left? Great question. Oh, will we?
But I think I know what it is, but
So what would be left is the project at Essex Elementary School for pre-K through fifth grade. And we would have to consider the three required options, which is basically a code upgrade, the bare minimum that we could do. Addition renovation, combination option, and a new construction option. And there might be some in between.
And I think that was a part of the conversation about starting to narrow down. The fewer options that they have to develop, the more development they can do and the more iterations they can do on each of the three scenarios that are left.
Yeah.
So there's still, because I guess where my hand is going is listening to Maggie saying, you know, kids are worried about budget. Movies worried about budget. What they really want, it's feasible. But budget isn't part of that analysis per se.
Yeah.
But it would still be of the three options that remain.
Yes, that's required.
Presumably those have potentially at least different costs.
Oh, they do. They definitely do.
Because I could just see people ask. like,
Yeah, oh,
I find it well that you want to do that, but what about the cost? Because at the same time, you're telling us you want us to approve this budget.
Yeah, and even within those options, you know, there are things that we haven't even been able to think about bringing to the table yet. Like, for instance, the idea that for instance, a code upgrade, if we just did the bare minimum with the reimbursable costs that would come with new construction, it may be that isn't really a big savings, and so you're putting the same amount of money or similar as you would for a new structure there. So those are the kinds of things that we can dive into in the next phase, but not if we've still got 7, you know, options on the table. So this really narrows it down to say, and frankly, for at this committee level to say, this is what the plan had been. The plan had been, high school was done, do Memorial, then do Essex Elementary. The different options had come up in the last couple of years because of the budget conversation. To consider whether it would be economically a better idea to just merge everyone at Memorial, which we get why it might seem that way, but in the end, it's not. Or to split the two and make a smaller building, but again, you still have all of the operating costs of the building. And so due diligence has been done there. Not just what we've done in open meeting, but all of the back work to bring that to this. And that was a big part of the discussion too, which was how to help people understand this, and that we did look at this in great detail, and this is why we feel confident moving it forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we have like easy access to this? It's you said it's on the website.
Yeah, so all of the meeting materials are on the Essex Elementary building project website.
So I was trying to pull it up. I didn't immediately find it. I can dig around. But
Yeah, it's not super easy to navigate.
I would just love to see that document.
Yeah, it's on Ross.
If you just go to the last meeting, the presentation,
Okay.
it should be embedded in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all we've got.
Anything to add?
No, I think that was a really great summary. I think that the people on this committee, there's a lot of really bright technical minds, and they're coming up with a lot of great points. some great analogies. They really put some thought behind this. So I'm actually learning a lot.
Yeah.
Just by listening on these meetings.
And again, the school committee is welcome to attend any and all of these meetings as well. There's always a remote option as well, so.
And we do have, our next regular meeting is January 26th, but on the 28th, we have the next community meeting. So that'll take place at Essex Elementary School, and that'll be where, assuming that the vote, the straw poll we took is confirmed in a final vote on the 26th, we'll be able to help the community understand how we came to this and what the next steps are.
Yeah, so just to help you get acclimated to the building project site, if you go under project documents, you're gonna see right up top is SBC meetings and recordings. If you click that, every meeting's materials, the recording link and the presentation materials are right there. So if you click presentation materials and just flip through it, it's in.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. The Finance Committee did meet today. And we reviewed a few options that the committee will see tonight for our initial discussions around the budget. There wasn't really much else, right?
See, we'll talk about everything.
We'll discuss everything this evening. We took a first look and seems like we are on the right track with our progress. This is the best way to say it. I don't believe the policy and advocacy committee had a meeting, or did you? Okay, and then the negotiation team also did not meet. So moving right on to the superintendent's report.
Sure, verbal report tonight and just a couple of topics. I just want to start with some very sad news and the acknowledgement of Carolyn F. Hunt's passing. It's really devastated all of us. Carolyn has been a long-term art teacher here at the high school until just a couple of years ago. She had to retire for health reasons. And after a very long and courageous battle with cancer, she did pass last week. It's a lot for all of us because if you know, you may know, you may not, that Carolyn's husband, Stephen, is our facilities manager. And her mother-in-law, Stephen's mother, was the longtime middle school administrative assistant, and before that, she worked up here in the library. So it's, really hit the whole community hard. But we are carrying on and we're sending all of our love and support to Steve. We're here for him if he needs anything. So just wanted to acknowledge that we lost a really special person to us all. And thank you for all your kind words that you shared. There are no arrangement details yet, and we'll share them. I think it's going to be a month or two. My other update is just the middle school principal search is underway. The asked for committee, search committee members has gone out. We've already gotten some emails back. There's a leadership profile survey that's out there, and we have 2 focus groups, one for faculty and one for community members and parents on January 28th. Which is a couple of weeks out. On Wednesday, they're both available in person and virtual. And it sounds like we might be seeing some weather toward the end of January, so we'll have some snow dates there too. But we should be getting into interviews. Right now, we're scheduled for the week of the 2nd. We did go forward and use NASDAQ as the search agent, which is kind of interesting because I don't have the daily monitors. They're collecting things for me, which is kind of fun. But they've utilized not only School Spring, but different national journals like Ed Jobs or Ed Week to publish it. So we're hoping that their broader reach in their advocacy and their relentlessness and letting people know that this job is posted is going to yield us a larger pool of candidates than we've seen for our past searches. And I'll keep you updated on that as we go. So that's the general timeline. Tentative, if everything moves along as scheduled, we should have the whole thing wrapped up in an appointment by the 1st or 2nd week of March. And the only other acknowledgement I wanted to offer tonight is Marin I have to see it in front of me. Vetramini, thank you. At the middle school has won the Patriot Pen Award, which is quite an accomplishment. And it's been a long time project that we do at the middle school. Dual Plant has been very active in that, but she won the whole Region 10, which is inclusive of the entire North Shore. So she'll be honored locally here this morning. And then there's a ceremony later in the winter for her, I believe, at the State House. That's the State House in Boston. But we're very excited. We have a press release coming out. It hasn't hit already. It's just a really good piece of news, and we already heard the report house on deck. So things are going really well for our kids. And that's what I have tonight, because we have been working on budget. That's one of our other updates.
All right, thank you. Do you have any questions? Okay. All right. So moving right along, we're going to start with Heather.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
I was like the long time.
Yeah.
It's an old medicine.
Hello, Heather. And welcome.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Good. Good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
My update is pretty brief as well this evening. Just a few updates coming from the curriculum office because we're just have so many things going on and we're keeping quite busy. Wanted to share three big buckets of work that's been going on out of my office and in collaboration with all of our fabulous educators. One is, I mentioned it earlier in this year and shared it before, had started to form cross-district networks, or PLCs, which that stands for professional learning communities. And this is really intended to target roles that often work in solo position. So people that might be the only one who teaches at that level or in that position or at that school, and are often groups that may not always have those collaborative peers to be thinking deeply about what they're doing, how, and breaking out of some of those silos of their work. And honestly, the idea of making this came from our teachers giving feedback that they're really looking to expand and collaborate and grow their practice. And so I'm excited to share these networks are really solidly in place. There are 4 of us. There's Manchester-Essex, Hamilton-Wenham, Georgetown, and Rockport. And we really made sure that we focus on districts of like size because there's some of the same strengths and some of the same challenges you have of districts who have that similar structure are something that they are collaborating on. So they have all had a first round, and these groups include, we have a health, wellness, physical education group. We have a visual arts group, performing arts group, multilingual learner teacher group, library, technology, digital literacy, computer science, that one's the longest name, and an instructional coaches group. And they've all met at least once, and we've just launched and planned for their second meeting for this year. And the way we've decided it is all 4 of my colleagues, the district director level, we compiled all when do we have early release days, who can host when. We've shared, and I have facilitators across all of the districts within each of these groups as some of our teacher leaders. And they have a half day in an afternoon they're getting together, and they're really leaning into like, what do the current curriculum frameworks say? Because a lot of these groups have just gone through some significant updates. What do their course pathways look like? What are their offerings? How are they using different instructional methodology, tools, resources, partnerships? And it's actually really exciting because I've heard really positive feedback from our educators going and expanding their own networks. Some groups that have already like, oh, we're already emailing each other and connecting. So our educators have really been fantastic and open to engaging in this, and excited that it's continuing again for that second round in February and March of this year. So just wanted to like shout them out because sometimes it's hard to get out of your own space, and really being transparent with your practice can be vulnerable, and they're just nailing it. So yeah, I'm excited they get a chance to go again. And I'm excited to see what comes from it because they've got a couple of ideas brewing about how we can do some cross-district collaborations. They were talking about going to visit each other. So some good things coming out of that. The staff PD, this is what's happening when your kids are heading home for those early release days. What are we doing? We're digging in and working hard. Our 2 primary focus areas during these early release days this year have been around artificial intelligence and content focused work. So the AI work has really been in partnership with MIT, with RAISE. I know I did mention that earlier in the year, but we did finish our second targeted training with them in December. So the 2 primary prongs that we've really focused on, one is AI for educators. What does it mean? What does it look like? what are the pitfalls, what are the possibilities, what is some of the research telling us, and then thinking about what might that look like for educators for their own selves. And then the second problem is that idea of AI literacy for students. What should students know? What does it mean to be responsibly literate about AI? What are the different components we as educators need to consider? And this is really thinking about those different range of learners we have. So the first one, teachers were invited to select their own preference based on their previous experience. If they feel that they were a beginner, or they somebody who's been playing with AI and more advanced. And then the second one was focused on developmental age. So we had our K through 5 working together and our 6 through 12 working together to think about what does it look like to help plan for our students' AI literacy. Please note that all of this is not a matter of like, we think it's great or we think it's awful, but it's just, it is in our world. It's something that's happening and something that we're responsible to understand and learn about. Additionally, we've had a lot of embedded AI training from our internal staff who are teaching us an awesome job making sure that the teachers that they're working with feel confident, capable, understand that we're thinking both about where are we responsible, what are ethical responsibilities in there, and also where are there places that this might be something that supports our work in service of students and learning. The other aspect of our PD has been content focused. So we have a wide range of groups that are working across different pieces, and some are doing some curriculum articulation, some are working on some targeted instructional training in PD. There are some cross-level, some vertical, like cross, and then some horizontal across different schools and buildings. And that work is helping us move forward some of those more focused within content work. We've done a lot of work over the last few years around practices that are universal to all, like universal design for learning, thinking about SEL. These were really leaning into a lot of those focused within content learning strands across the district. So that's staff PD, quick little update. And then the last piece I just wanted to highlight is some of the work that's happening, sort of running parallel, while it's not the core of some of those other pieces, but simultaneously we have some ongoing literacy efforts that we're supporting. The two that I just wanted to name is we were awarded a tutoring grant with DESE to support and partner with Ignite Tutoring to provide really targeted tutoring for early literacy. And this is being supported. It's really primarily focused on first grade, and we use data to assess and evaluate students who might really need that targeted support. It's 15 minutes a day, every day within their literacy block. And the students get a chance to work with a live tutor within small groups, and they're on their computer, but they stay in their classrooms with their peers. It's like a station basically during literacy time. So that's been a nice opportunity for us to just provide an additional dose of support, an additional, opportunity to touch students' support and learning above and beyond the work that's already happening in our classes with our fantastic interventionists, Title I, and our classroom teachers. And then the other piece is we did have some folks who engaged in the literacy launch initiative with DESE, which is professional learning around literacy. And that actually allowed us to get some targeted coaching. So we have a series of sessions that are the partners at Hill for Literacy are coming to do some really targeted instructional routines at Essex to partner with the teachers around what does that look like within our classrooms, and not supporting rooms across K through 3. So just some fun highlights, some good stuff going on as always, busy. And I did just want to shout out, it has been out in the newsletter a few times, but a warm invitation to anyone in the community. This is a keynote that, again, this actually I want to shout out to the support that we've had with the AI partnership, the MIT partnership, and this night, that was also all, we're actually getting a chance to participate in that for free. So we, in partnering with them, have had an opportunity to have this really rich, really current PD and had a chance to get in on that early. So that's been exciting. Tomorrow night, if you're willing to come back tomorrow at 6 in the auditorium, we're going to be hearing from Jeff Riley. So Jeff Riley is the former Commissioner of Education for the state of education for the state of Massachusetts, and former superintendent, but he's been working for the last few years with the Day of AI organization around what does AI look like, sound like, and mean for us as an educational community, for families, for kids. So if you haven't heard Jeff Riley speak, he's an engaging speaker, really likes to talk with people, and is really he's a fun guy to listen to. So I hope that you can come and help learn a little bit more for yourself, for your learners, as we continue to grow our learning as well. That's it for me. So, yeah.
Any questions for her?
Is this offered virtually as well, or just
Doing in person, not set up a live stream.
I was just curious. And then can I ask about PLCs? Can you just tell me existing PLCs, like these were for
singleton teachers. That, you know, they don't have a lot of other people in the district that they need to see. What are the existing VLCs?
We have a lot of different teacher collaborative groups. I don't know that they would all follow sort of a PLC description per se.
Okay.
We have departments, we'll have a lot of groups that are working together. Some of them are ad hoc, like when there's a time the group gets together to focus on a particular content area. Necessarily, there's a lot of like cross, like at the elementary level, for example, the grade levels will get together across, utilizing data when the data comes out, throughout the year. We're not currently implementing sort of an active PLC rotation model beyond sort of the embedded structures within the day that include things like team-based learning at the middle, that they have some time, departmental structures at the middle high school.
Okay, thank you.
Out of mostly just curiosity, how much access do our students at, say, the high school level have to AI? Like, do we lock down the network or is it wide open? I mean, I know that we have rules about it from teachers in the classroom, but what access level?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's not a simple answer because frankly, a lot of what you probably have noticed is that AI is embedded in a lot of what you do, whether you like it or not, right? Like you open a Google browser, it's going to give you the answer in it,
The little clip,
right? Yeah.
clip guy.
I know the happy the bug eyes. So honestly, I think the nuances are that it's becoming embedded in a lot of programs and structures that we use, maybe intentionally, maybe not. So a lot of what we're thinking about is you can't really sort of wholesale block or wholesale permit things. We do have appropriate web filters on, as sort of like safety and security measures go, as far as the technology is concerned. But using different platforms and tools, that's the bit that's sort of going to AI for the intent of using AI is a little bit of where this nuance comes, where we're learning and trying to get our hands around how do we as educators establish those expectations for student use? Is this a no use, no thank you, don't touch? Is this we're using it because we're trying to get, maybe editing feedback, or we're using it to help be a study partner, or we kind of learning about it because so we're digging in. So it's a range, I would say. We have some platforms that we use as a district that have it embedded in. So Canva, which is a frequently used online platform, has it really embedded, it baked right in. There's other learning-based ones like Red Ink, for example, that is used by our ELA secondary teachers that has AI components embedded within. So how frequently we're using it, how often students are engaging with it, both intentionally with guidance versus on their own agency, I don't have a clean singular answer for you there yet. So that's why we're, again, building our own understanding so we can start to articulate more consistent expectations around informed, thoughtful, ethical, and responsible use.
It's really interesting. Thank you.
Well,
And thank you for pursuing that. I know that here we've expressed interest in like AI getting ahead of it. And so I appreciate the efforts to get families engaged on.
kudos to our educators because it's over what you're, if anyone's paying attention, it is fast moving, it's changing. This shift that's having impact on our world, but also on education is moving at a pace unlike anything I've seen. And our educators are like, they're leaning in to learn. And, I think we're all trying to be appropriately cautious and responsible. And it's hard. It's a lot when you add this massive fast paced shift into the work. So our educators have been doing a really great job of getting their hands around learning. Yeah. Thanks.
One question I guess I have building on that, and it relates back to what I've seen my kids learn this media literacy and learning how to be responsible consumers of media, et cetera. So is when it comes to AI, teaching kids when is it appropriate enough. So for example, if you have a homework assignment to write a report or an essay on XYZ topic, having AI write it and submit it as your work without intention, right? Versus some other use that maybe the teacher section will say, let's conduct research on this topic and use as one of your sources of it's simply that approach when almost like from an ethical conduct standpoint. Is that something, because I see with my own kids, when I have particular discussions with my youngest one, no, that's not okay.
Right. And that's part of, finding the guardrails, right? Yeah.
Are the teachers like also able to tell?
Yeah. Yep. Well, and that's that other piece, right? Like a year ago, there were like the AI detectors, and they're like, it's awesome, they can help, you can spot it. I mean, they've now made AI that is AI detector proof. I mean, it's sort of become this iterative, I mean, it's a pattern machine. It's a dream if you're trying to find predictable things. What I would say is where I see our next steps going is that how are we communicating our learning expectations and usage expectations? And it's never really like yes or no. It's more likely going to be a spectrum. Is it a no use? Is it a full use? Is it a use to review? Is it a use to spark ideas? Is it a use to check? And then additionally, to make sure we're maintaining academic integrity, how do you cite your usage? What does that responsible, reflection of usage of a tool look like? So these are sort of that next step for us now that we all have a universal shared foundation of what it is, what it looks like, what it might mean for us as educators and for our students. That next step is what is our consistent practice of a district so our students know and it's predictable, but what does it look like to say use this tool? I think some of it is similar to like my math teacher saying, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket for your life. And, you can't just go to Google for everything, right? So there's a little bit of this, like us getting over this, like,
Or plagiarism, right? Like
well, right,
examples of
right.
Plagiarism.
And it's a dynamic moving piece as well, as soon as, even sort of that being responsible and safe with your own data and your uses. When you put something in, it's now not yours, it's now in there. Where does it go? So both sides of that, pulling these things in and what you decide to enter into it, and how do we make sure that we're equipping our students to be, knowledgeable, responsible, safe users, both for them protecting their own data, their own selves, and also making sure that their work is reflecting their academic integrity and capacity. Sorry.
Okay, so that is something you're.
It's where we're headed. All right.
I also have one more quick question around that.
Love it. Yeah.
Well, this really is more on the curriculum side, though.
Okay.
Are we is part of this work starting to look at developing curriculum to, I don't want to say, like teach AI, but to teach students how to leverage AI to create businesses are we doing or looking at any of that yet?
I would say yes with an asterisk. So one of the benefits of the partnership we've had with Day of AI is that they've actually created curriculum around teaching students to increase student literacy about AI. What is it? What does it mean? What can it do?
Sure.
Where do you have to be cautious? So that's a bit of what we're doing, and some of those lessons have already been have begun at the elementary schools. So some of your students may have already engaged in some of that. Some of our next steps is going to be in what places and in what ways does it support and enhance the learning? We don't want to just have it be like a substitution, right? I could do it on this, but I'm gonna do it on the AI instead. But where are those places that it can really enhance for further learning or give students a chance to engage in learning in a different way? So part of that's going to be like finding those spots. So a bit of what I can say, for example, just Wednesday in the elementary, they spent a bit of time coming in with a place that they could think about utilizing AI to enhance and really increase that rigor with certain academic learning experiences with support and guidance from our technology specialists. We're also partnering as well with our digital literacy computer science teachers to think about where Oh, I just heard you the kids.
What if you click on start video?
It's working.
It's working. It's working. Now you're back. Now you're back.
That was just entertainment. It looks like it's the video that's out. See.
So the plug for it.
No,
Well,
it's just all on it.
Okay, everyone said yes.
So as long as they can hear us, I think we're okay to proceed because we can still put our graphics up. We just won't be able to see us.
Right, see the meeting itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audio is working, not the video. Okay.
Alright.
Sometimes it'll loop itself back on. We'll just keep an eye on it.
Pam, I'm happy to, I know you had an order and I know Julia did want to get to the basketball game, but if you wanted me to stay, I'm happy to stay. I'll stick around and I don't want to
Chair's call.
up to you all.
Is the district calendar short? I can, you don't mind. Why don't we move on to Julie? Why don't you come on up? Because I think that will be relatively short as well.
I'll be back. I won't go first. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Heather. So we're moving on to our high school program of studies and graduation requirements. And just for the committee, this does require a vote at the end, and I think we are prepared to do that.
Two votes, right?
Please.
And I did put together the program, the policy version of it, and it's saved neatly in the folder. I just do not. remember.
That's fine, as long as we're all aware that we are changing the policy document.
Yeah, I can put it up.
Right, it's just that they are.
Graduation requirements are a school committee policy, so it's presented in the program of studies, but we're also changing the language in the policy.
But
Got it.
again, it's about the.
Yeah, it's about the articles.
And well, yes,
It's approving the entire
entire.
list,
Yeah.
and that's the new additions. Is that correct? The new additions to graduation.
All right, I'll put it up. We have it for visual reference. I just like it to.
So why don't you go ahead, Julie?
All right, well, similar to what hi, everyone. Yeah, happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Similar to what we presented before we left for our break was the program of studies. The biggest change, well, we went over the changes last time, but what we're here to discuss, I guess, is just talking about the art requirement and adding that in. Take a look at those graduation requirements, and I want to make sure that the wording is in there correct. We added in suggested 10 hours per year for community service. We talked about the visual and performing arts and put in that it would be starting with the class of 2030. The other thing we kind of, we just took the time because we had it just to go through again. And the department chairs took a long look at what each department offered, and we made some pathways for all of the departments. So we were able to color coordinate and get those looking really good. And we felt better about the way those look than what they did in the past. So just highlighting, the pathways of where you can go and kind of combining things and making sure that everyone can see just the different options. It's a long document, and it's really hard to, I don't think anyone has ever read it cover to cover. Maybe you have, but I think it's important to note that it's been, it's a tool that should be used in conjunction with the other things we have offered, and in meaning conversations with counselors, not to overlook how important it is for the students to talk to their teachers when they're talking about what they're thinking about, talking to their families about what they're thinking, for their experience to be here at the high school. And so this is just a tool, and it's hard when you start to look at it and you want everything to just spell it all out perfectly. I think, like I said last time, as soon as we approve it, I will find something that I'll say, we should probably change that for next year. So, but there it is. So we talked about our changes. last time, and now I guess I'm just here to see if there's any further questions and to go forward.
So with that, go ahead.
I have three, but I think are quick questions.
Okay.
So one is, I'm wondering if it's a typo or if I'm reading wrong. On page 24.
Mhm.
I'm the nerd that does, she discover it.
I know, I made a face when I said nobody
The
does.
first time that she- Am I doing it?
In the English pathways?
In the English elective, or excuse me, in the 12 section. So English 11 has advanced placement language and.
Yes,
12 should be lit.
yes, it should. Yes, it should.
So that's just a small thing. A question, because I just wasn't understanding on page 33 about the French. So there's a note at the bottom that says French 4 AP Learning Culture. Students move on to French 5 honors during their senior year. So what is the French 5 AP, those two options? How do you access those?
French 4 and French, I'm gonna say that caveat is there when it's not able to be offered. So that's because French, sometimes we're able to offer certain things and other times not. So if you take French 4 AP and we don't have, because it says French 5 AP lit.
Right.
If that's not just able to be offered, then that's where they would move on. I think the idea to have that there is to remind students that for our program, Spanish 4 and French 4, or I'm sorry, AP Language and Culture for Spanish is typically in the 4th year. Students can take it in the 5th year, which is why that map has it, but the typical pathway, because we have the 2 APs, would be language comes first. Yeah.
Okay.
And the third one,
And the third
Sorry,
one,
before you move there. Is there a separate French 5 AP, literature and culture versus language and culture?
those are 2 separate courses. Yes.
they're both on, yeah.
But it would be only French 5. Couldn't take that as French 1.
Literature would not be, you could not take literature in the junior year. That's specifically only offered. Again, it's just the way things kind of break down. It depends on what we have for offerings, but language, just like in English, AP language usually goes before AP literature. Yeah.
These are, I mean, I see that these are the electives that,
Yep.
that are available when offered. I just was curious
Yeah.
about that note.
And these are typical pathways, right?
Yeah,
So if we
right.
have a student who moves here from France
Mhm.
and is a fluent French speaker and their entry point is French 4,
Right.
they may have different options at different grade levels. So this isn't a required sequence, it is the typical
Typical.
sequence.
And that was
There's
where
lots of
you start to get really into the weeds with it and you can't then make a pathway.
Yeah. And then my final question, and I feel like I've asked it before, and I just want to clarify that I understand it. On the graduation requirements on page 6,
Mhm.
it's the civic action project, which is listed. And on the program of studies table on page 13, the elective is technology digital. And it doesn't, this isn't connected in the description of the course as required. So is this intentional? So that because in the description of technology and digital literacy, it says a civic action project will be
Mhm.
undertaken.
Mhm.
Is this intentional, knowing that the requirement is the civic action project and it right now is taking place there, but might not, it's just a disconnect. I just want to know if it's intentional.
Okay, let me see if I'm following you. So page 6 says civic action project, page 13.
With the 0.5.
Yep. Page 13 is saying, where are you?
It's showing on the table of the suggested, 9, 10, 11, 12, and at the bottom it has the elective, and it shows across, at some point, you take
Technology,
a visual performing arts, and at some point you take a tech and digital literacy. I know from the description that that's where you find the civic action project right now. But the tech and digital literacy isn't required in the graduation requirement.
Those where it says electives is not necessarily saying you must take this. That's just your electives. Most of our electives are visual and performing arts. That's where that would fit in. So this chart is not necessarily saying that technology, it's just listing like these are your options in those electives. They're typically visual and performing arts. Again, we could put in there a social studies elective or an English elective or a science elective, but it's just showing where if I'm taking a full course load,
Mhm.
what is gonna fit? How am I gonna fit these things in there? So that where it says technology and digital literacy is not referring to necessarily that civic action.
Okay, it reads as though that should be the requirement for like the civic
Right.
action project should go there. I'm not trying to recreate the wheel on you.
Yeah.
That's just the disconnect that I'm.
Yep.
Yeah, but the disconnect I'm hearing in what you're saying now is that that is treated as an elective that you don't have to take, but the civic action is a requirement.
No, I'm not saying that's being treated as elective. I'm saying on page 13 in that area where it says elective, one bar says visual performing arts, one bar says technology and digital literacy.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that's kind of giving just a general idea of what your student's typical day could be. And if you're looking at taking, because that could be visual and performing arts goes across the board. 11th and 12th grade, especially those electives students take a variety of different electives. So it's just the typical schedule of what it would look like. It's not mimicking what is exactly required.
Okay. Sure.
And maybe
Because
that's
now-
something, yeah.
Now we're in it. The tech and digital literacy does say 9th and 10th in the course description.
Yeah.
But it's showing across all four of them here.
Right, because you can take other technology electives.
Am I,
The visual
So-
performance
so
class is this
these-
example.
I understand. No, that's a whole, those are that's categories and that's a graduation requirement.
No, but these are saying, she is saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
That's okay.
That there's room for you to take 2 electives each of those years, and that typically students choose to take 1 elective in the visual/performing arts area and 1 elective in a technology, digital literacy area. It's not saying that either of those are required or not required. It's
Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna take this into, and I'm not gonna belabor the problem.
Yeah. Maybe it's something, maybe we focus on that we focused on our pathways and making sure they were clearer. But maybe we focus on that course of studies on page 13 and just see where it has become misleading over the years.
well, it's
For next year. For next year, yes.
less might be.
Hopefully.
Yep.
Less might be more, yes.
On that page, the world language,
Mhm.
why would we not mention anything in 11 or 12, even if it's electives? But I thought, at the same time, we're encouraging students to take more than 2 years.
So we are definitely encouraging them to take more than 2 years. Again, this was just a typical, like, it's going through based on the variety, like it says, courses office students may occasionally have to make a choice of courses. This has been in there just giving, like, this is what a typical schedule could look like. 2 years are the requirement. So it's probably one of those things that we nitpicked and we're like, well, we should put what's required. We should put this, we should put that. And in the end, it's not, maybe it needs to just be deleted.
You probably want it out because I feel like we spent an extensive amount of time talking about how you wanted to model this. And we kind of came to consensus around modeling it like mathematics. And that there's a segment of years in which you're required to take it, and then it breaks down into not having any requirements, and it's all choice. Right. In the senior year. So it was treated like the other academics in terms of when there are requirements to take courses, even though the courses might be optional, which course might be optional.
Right.
Versus when you don't have to take any courses. So it's 2 years of world language, 3 years of math, 3 years of science. So it is imperfect.
Well,
A
but
lot of effort went into it.
yes, sorry, Pam, too. So if you're saying that's 3 years of science, I read this.
Looking at the bubbles.
Oh, okay, because I'm looking at the table, so if the table is to be interpreted as, this is what I'm required to take, so I have to take 4 years of math, here are the options during those 4 years. I have to take 4 years of science, here are the options. If that's the right way to read it, then I understand, because then you're saying only 2 years of world language, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding your intent.
I think what this was meant to do was just give a typical, like, this is what a typical course pathway would be, like, and it's not because it's not listing everything you can take with electives. It's not listing the other options you can have. It's just in general, if I'm taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different courses, then how is it going to look in my day?
No, I'm talking about the table.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it is not a reflection of just the requirements.
no,
But because we require 3 years of science, either junior year or senior year would fill one of those blocks with an elective.
So I think the point is well
Right.
taken, that this is kind of doing multiple things, which maybe.
and it's maybe
Yeah, and I guess I
contradicting itself, and it's,
would love to see world language, like put in something more though. If this isn't supposed to show you only what's required, then.
sure.
Read them all.
Football one there, because I don't know, actually, I don't have the data in front of me, what percentage of students takes more than 2 years for language, but we also have language in here saying it's right, May first.
I think it could be remedied by just putting the word elective, under
Yeah.
grade 11, and elective under grade 12.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, seems like that's maybe a feedback or the following year wouldn't hold up
Yeah, I
this
agree.
year.
Yeah,
I agree.
For clarity's sake, are we having two separate discussions about graduation requirements and program of studies? Oh, so let's just.
Graduation.
Just
Julie, if you're open to it, I would just add elective in those two boxes. I don't think there was any intentionality to treat it
No.
differently because you. I was
think it's- I
recalling
don't
the
think it-
extensive conversation we had about
Right.
campus.
Yep.
And how to treat them all equally. So it just didn't carry up to that.
elective and elective.
Wait, so I thought we were doing graduation requirements right now.
I thought it was doing.
Just,
You know,
I'm gonna take two separate votes, so however, you'd like, seeing as we're on program of studies. Those are all my questions. Let's continue with program of studies.
Program of studies. I do have a question about program of studies. Yeah, at our last meeting, we had talked about the guidelines for course change requests.
Right.
and The ambiguity around whether or not a student waived into a higher level course.
Mhm.
Was able to drop that course during the normal ad drop
Yep.
period or not.
Mhm.
Um,
So I'll be not ambiguous and say that they are, if you are wavering into a course, you are required to stay throughout the term.
so
And kind of the reasoning behind that, because I can see the gears turning. The reasoning behind that is to support the student in, so the waiver process is pretty extensive. You know, you need to talk to your teacher, you're having this conversation with your teacher. You want to enter, and this is not the only way to necessarily change levels. Like if there's a student in CP in there and the student and the teacher say, I'd like to challenge myself to honors, the teacher agrees, they get put in that in honors. A waiver only happens when conversation kind of hits a bump in the road and the student or the wants to go into honors and the coursework doesn't reflect that student can maybe make it in that course. So the waiver process is pretty extensive. It starts in March and there's conversations with the teacher, there's conversations with the department chair, the counselors, the parents. When they sign that, they sign the form that says, I will stay through the term. And part of the reasoning behind that is we're encouraging that perseverance. We want to build resilience. We have students that I'm trying honors, and then the first week I get a quiz and it's not so great, and now I want out. No, this might just be your bump in the road. Try this out for the term and push through and see, because that first quiz, especially when you come back, might be scary and it might not be great. And so I think if we say give it a try, but you can jump out in a week, you haven't given it enough of a try. You can't sign up for baseball and then quit after the first game. We have to stick it out. That's my, no, I can give you another reference. But so it's to encourage that to develop, like you need to make this is an informed decision. It's also, the other problem just based on our size is we have you in an honors course. You want to, move into CP, that may have a huge implication on your schedule and just blow the whole thing up. So we just want to prevent that knee-jerk reaction and a full, it's a term. It's not a full semester. It's not a year.
but it is a grade that is then on their transcript when they apply to colleges.
That grade. Well, usually it's just the final grade that's on the transcript. So it wouldn't be the term grade.
Work if you have to change.
So moving in, usually after a term, if we move in, there's a number of different ways this is kind of play out, but if you're moving, if I'm going in and applying to college, they're not looking at term one of ninth grade or term one of 10th grade. They're looking at that final grade. And I was in this class and I got this grade on that. So
So if you got an F during first term and then transferred to a lower level class and did well in that class, the F doesn't factor into.
the F
Grade.
would factor in, but when it's the CP credit, there is a weighting thing that happens with honors grades being weighted a different way than CP. So that would come into effect.
And then why? If I understand and I appreciate what you're saying about the standard and encouraging the resilience and perseverance, but then why wouldn't we just do that for every student? Why only for students who have already gone through a lengthy waiver process?
Because it's to acknowledge that commitment. So the add drop that first 3 weeks to keep, I think if we did add drop throughout the whole first term, it would be very disruptive. Yeah,
No, I mean, what if everybody had to stay in until the end of first?
I think it would,
I think the fundamental
because we have kids that are,
we're not saying directly is that we are actively advising you not to undertake this.
But so
And
I
you're doing it
appreciate that.
anyway, and we're asking for your commitment when doing so that you stay for the first term. And then all of the positive outcomes for the student perseverance piece is true, but
Yeah.
I think that's a piece of it. You're signing up to take this on for a quarter.
So then do we provide any structure or support for a student who say at the beginning of the year in their regularly paced math, in their grade level math says, I really wish that I had been in advanced math since 7th grade or whatever, but now the trajectory is like this. Do we provide a program to fill this gap? Because if students are creating their own route to advanced math, I don't know how a teacher would be able to gauge that, say, before the summer.
are you specifically talking about
I
math?
slightly suggest that this isn't really the program of studies. This is a whole other conversation. Because the program of studies is the course offerings for next year and then the graduation requirements. If we want to do a session, we can have Sam come in and we can kind of get a sense of what all the questions are around. This is the placement discussion in my mind. How are placements made? How are recommendations by teachers made? What's the data based on? I think that's a whole separate discussion, which isn't necessarily tied to the program of studies.
I would agree.
I'm
I
happy
think
to
the
have
question the question I'm hearing is, if there's a deficit at the middle school or at the high school, are we going to make up for it? And are you putting in policies that are going to facilitate that or make that work? And I think that is an entirely different discussion than what's the course offerings at the high school next year.
Respectfully, I'm gonna push back a teeny bit and just say, I think it's pertinent primarily because the section here is guidelines for course change requests. And so that's where this is coming from. But if we feel like we're getting kind of into the weeds on how we understand the process
Mhm.
versus what's on the paper, then maybe a teach-in down the line does make sense. So I think that would be a question for Kate, like, is it something on the paper that you're questioning versus something that we need to understand better?
I think that, I mean, it's possible that what I'm questioning is because I don't understand it, but also I thought that the ask was to confirm alignment with school and district goals and objectives. And I feel as though this portion of the program of studies doesn't align with some of the more student-centered approaches that we have used. I'm happy to hold the conversation for another time, but I
No, fair enough.
did bring it up in class, so I did email it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Here we are.
And it also does speak to the pathways, right? Particularly for math.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I think overall, instead of speaking of just in general math, like knowing our students and knowing that we have students that want a waiver and they want to override, they want to go into this course. I see that more as it is student centered because it's not, I know you're scared. but you agreed to do this, so like, we gotta hunker down and you gotta determine, instead of just saying, yeah, it was a bad grade, go right over here, you can't do this. Like, I think I'd feel worse about saying that and allowing them to drop so quickly, because we have had plenty of times where students, you know, and obviously, you know, we're all humans here, so in some ways, this is case by case too, and how well do we know our students and how well do we know them to push them, but we have plenty of situations where there's been students that were, you know, really worried in the beginning and then were able to make it through. You know, and yes, I see the point of that, but of it might be a little unfair as opposed to the other ad drop, but sometimes the other ad drop is they're talking about semester courses and electives and they're just trying to work out their schedule. It's not, you know, yeah. The other part to this, and this is, you know, we are a small place. And so it's not very easy to go to drop a level. It's not even always easy to go lateral because, you know, we only offer a certain amount of sections, a very finite amount of sections. And that's the other part where like, well, now your whole schedule has been blown to bits because of this change. When maybe we just needed to just take a breath for a second. And, you know, the Q1 is November. And in the grand scheme of things, that's not that long, you know. Now that it's January, November, it seems like that wasn't that long to be, you know, doing something for a while. I know when we're in it and it's September and it's October and your student is saying, I don't want to be in this class anymore, but that's when we come in and we, you know, we have conversations and we'll see what we can do to help out as best we can and have them be successful. I would hate to say, yep, after a week or two, go ahead, drop out, you know, drop down to that level. Because if you went through this waiver process and you were so certain you wanted to do it, then I feel like it's my responsibility as your principal to see it through at least for a quarter. You know, because we do believe in them.
I'll just add that I'm not trying to pick on like a middle school deficit, but math is the only subject area that we begin tracking starting in 7th grade. So I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but I think that that's why it's the example that comes up most frequently is because it starts here.
Yes, and that's like, I think in math, we're asking about going into a whole different course. This is like, I was recommended for world history CP, but I would like to take world history honors. So it's a little different than kind of math where we might be asking to skip an entire level.
Are you guys asked, I mean, I guess what we would like is clarity on, is the ask to revise the waiver policy and shorten the window for movement? I think
Let's have
the
a
clarity would be
conversation about
helpful.
it. Let's have a more holistic conversation about it.
But not hold up this.
Yeah, when we
Yeah.
have time to do so.
Another myth is like on page 42 or even 50, where we say like grade 11, if I'm looking at 42, which is the math bubbles, because this was one of the things that Pam, you highlighted.
Yeah.
That updates and the iteration included as you is to make it singular, math elective. You know, on page 42, or if I go to in page 50, for example, science pathways, we say for grade 9, you can choose an additional science elective. 10 also, but then in 11 and 12, we say science electives. Assume which case we mean the same. You choose from the science electives, but you're choosing one. That even better.
There's no room on the schedule to take multiple.
Yeah, I don't think
So you
that's
would take
accurate.
two.
You
So
could.
You could,
So like grade 11, you could do physics or AP physics or several science
Yeah.
electives.
because especially we have semester courses and
Whereas in 9 and 10, we're saying you can only take one of them.
because the biology and chemistry are not active.
And there's
Okay,
no, that's your schedule.
Okay, so as long as I just want, if it's purposeful, that there we want to.
I just wanted two things, say thank you for reworking the pathways. I recognize like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The amount of work and also the amount of people involved in that work and just say thank you to all of those people that sat down and And
Yes,
it's a
the
similar,
department chairs did a great job. They worked really
Yeah.
hard. And we keep trying to, it's hard when you're in it and you know this, and we keep saying to me, like, pretend I have never had a student in high school.
yeah.
And I don't work in a high school.
Look at these pathways.
And does this make sense? So
Yeah,
I'm glad they look a little more clear.
yeah, mission
Mhm.
accomplished. And I did just have a very quick question about the performing arts
Mhm.
pathways. Under each one of these jazz band, chorus, etc., it says honors underneath.
Mhm.
So are all of these performing arts courses honors courses, or can you have jazz band that isn't honors or instrument lab that isn't honors?
We try to offer them and keep them as all honors.
They're all honors. Okay.
Yes, yes. I mean, there's possibility in our system to give them for CP credit, but the component, we do have a difference between it, and there is an honors component with it, but the students do that honors component. And so over the years, we've kind of just looked and tracked, and the students are performing at an honors level, so we're offering them that way.
Okay.
It's also a little bit more enticing to do, to choose to take the elective, knowing it can be at the honors level, because we have students that are very interested in their GPA and in their resume here. So knowing that they can take that is less of a detriment to maybe, and it's more of an incentive to take a course, knowing that, I can take this at honors level and I have to take band and CP. So,
Right.
yeah, we've kept it at honors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I have one request for you to think about going forward,
Mhm.
about not to answer here tonight and not to address in this.
Yep.
forum, But and it spans a little bit the graduation expectation and our implementation, if you will.
Okay.
And it has to do with the SCORE project in AP courses.
Yes.
It's my understanding that currently when students are taking AP courses, that's a senior, they get reduced score requirements.
AP courses, or if they're in a certain band and chorus class that meets all year, and journalism, because that continues to meet.
So I asked because as I was reflecting on the graduation requirements, SCORE is our graduation requirement.
Mhm.
Not APs. So particularly as we think about the statewide kind of graduation
Right.
conversation, shouldn't we prioritize our graduation requirements over APs? Graduation requirements.
I know. Yep.
Okay, I'm not asking the answer here. This is for thinking, okay? That's what I wanted to be clear,
Yeah.
not tonight,
Yeah,
but
That's why.
I think we should all be thinking. yes.
I like that. I like that. I think the heart of what makes that difficult is,
I understand why it's in
yes,
place,
the timing, right?
but I'm just thinking, all right, what's our graduation requirement? Why do we have it as graduation requirement?
Yeah.
And if we're letting kids out of it, are
Yeah.
they getting the equivalent or however we justify it?
Right.
But again, not to the answer tonight, but
Yep.
to be thinking about.
All right, so with that, are we ready to take both?
Two votes, no?
Two votes.
Are we doing now just programs?
No, I would take two separate votes, one on the graduation requirements and one on program studies, and I can show you both if you like. I mean, I can show you the graduation requirements. So this is put into the form that exists. So this is the current. What we added to it is in blue. And what we reworked. So basically, you see the visual and performing arts is added in blue for half your 2.5 credits. Then the competency determination reference down here. And then the two buckets. Underneath that is just the standard reference to credit for foreign study.
So it matches what's in program studies.
It should.
Yeah. Perfect.
Julie, do you see any 110 graduation? 110 credits?
Yep, it says world language 2 years, math 4, English 4, science 3, social studies 3, phys ed 4 years. Visual and performing arts program. Yep. Yes,
Begin with a class of 2030.
it's fuzzy, but I can read that. Yes.
Then you've got the recommended 10 hours per year.
Yep, community service, yep, score, civic action. Competency determination, yes.
And electives. Okay. You are good to vote. Motion.
All right, I move that we adopt the revised graduation requirements policy.
Second. We all,
All those in favor? That's unanimous.
So I move that we accept, is that the right word? The proposed program of studies.
Second.
All those in favor? That's also unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jill.
It's gonna be a great year.
Going forward, we're going to study waiver in. We're gonna study waiver in
Yep,
policies.
yep.
And look at score, AP, fourth quarter timings and priorities.
Equivalencies or whatever.
Priorities.
It could be a good topic tomorrow for student advisory lunch.
Yeah.
We can talk about if anyone wavered in or if they have opinions on it. You know what I mean? I'm going to basketball.
that's a great move to add the arts requirement.
Yes, that's a big deal. Yep, I'm very happy. Yep,
Yeah.
that's a good time to do
Next
it.
time.
Visual and performing arts, so we're gonna be making all sorts of music and art. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. All right, so moving on to the district calendar.
Another topic that allows for many teams.
Are you gonna need to take another dose of cold medicine?
I took a 4 to 5 hour one. Oh, come on. So you have that cold that will go away. I don't know what it's been like 2 weeks. It's been a little.
Yeah, I don't know, 12 days into it. I ran today because I'm so tired of not running and it was miserable. Like I literally, like, okay, run 3/4 of a mile, stop, blow my nose.
Beginning, I kept exercising and that wasn't really working out too well. So then that's kind of enough.
So you keep moving during week 1 and then week 2, the fatigue just like hits you. It's not great.
Yes, that's just something, that's what that is.
Stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. The calendar, is it different? Is there something that's significantly different from prior year calendars?
No.
Because I didn't notice it.
Yeah, the two things that we think, what's two or three things that we're doing that's a little bit different is we're proposing a 2-year calendar because this activity is just.
Yeah,
It's not fun. So just for reminder, the Professional Development Committee, along with Heather, work on the development of this. This is a joint approval process between Teachers Association and the school committee. Everyone has to agree. The big things are codified in the contract, like how we open up the year, whether it's before Labor Day and after Labor Day. So that's all written in stone. So really what we're just looking at every year is placement of vacation times and the release days primarily. And what's been in debate and studied over the past couple of years is the placement of the conferences. So I think in my notes to you, I had noted that after kind of a 2-year rotation and a parent feedback process, we're locking in on early conferences. That is the preference of the parent.
38% of respondents. I've heard 59 families.
Have the teachers, nice, later.
Hmm.
Have the teachers weighed in, like, are they part of the respondents or they still
Um,
through the professional development?
They had preferred the earlier. Over the last 2 years, we tried both based on feedback from the community about whether it should come when report cards come or earlier. The preference as of last year's professional development committee was that the earlier conferences they prefer because they can meet with families and build relationships early in the year. And then the idea of if there's something that's not going great, they can catch it a little earlier and support a correction. So that was last year's professional development committee, which is a representative group.
Thank you. You're welcome. The other piece is all of the release days, which are contractual. 10 of them are reverting back to Wednesdays, and that was overwhelming feedback from staff that the Friday PD days are not productive. Or effective.
It is very hard to do after a day of learning anyway, but then you add after that full week to try to do something where we're really digging into sometimes it's that teacher collaborative days that they're working with each other to get their hands around the work that we're trying to accomplish. And then sometimes it's learning and a Friday afternoon after a full week. And it's very difficult to have that be a worthwhile time. And if it's something that, if the investment in that professional learning is worthwhile to not have our students in front of us, we want to make sure that it's a value that's really contributing to increased growth and performance in our research.
Friday morning.
I suspect we would have incredibly high absenteeism rates, which might be a different problem.
Has there ever been, I know that more, maybe it's only anecdotally, but. Schools are
Just,
So full starts. Full length.
March 15th, 2027.
So after professionals, that's a full time.
Yeah, rather than so that teachers can do it before having to teach the whole day. And so that after school programming. Seems very usual on track.
I can tell you that we haven't explored that option. That hasn't been something that's been proposed for us to explore.
Yeah. Summarize that idea.
Yes, the question was, have we explored a late start rather than an early release? That some other districts are doing it because it then allows teachers to get the professional learning before teaching students, and it also allows after school activities and students' enrollment in those activities to continue for working families. My answer to the question was that's not something that we have been charged with exploring. So we have not, that is not something we've entertained yet.
My other question is about our conference days. I feel like the last couple of years we have asked about middle school conferences and attendance rates. And whether or not all of that time is needed, or, and I'm not saying either way, I'm just wondering if we are sort of following how many parents are using that conference time to meet with the teachers. And I know that it's in the contract. Is it through 8th that it's in the contract for?
Yes, and I will say that I too have concerns about the middle school conference organization and solicitation of parents to participate. And it's something I want to take on with the next principal coming. I think this is not I don't see it as a calendar issue so much as it is an execution and set of expectations issue. And I do think if we can't come to some different way of implementing, then we should look at whether or not we do all the time.
And
So approving
if I can just add on to that piece, that was if you did not participate in the survey, to let you know, we asked both preference of timing, but then we also said, ask what feedback do you have about conferences, and we can sort it by level. So we will be able to pull up feedback from families about effectiveness, not concerns, and feedback for improvement across our different levels. So we engaged the community for those input with that intent to look at, to make sure that, because we know that was a question that came up separate from the school.
I think there's a misalignment of expectations.
So would approving the calendar for 2 years out lock us into having the conference schedule?
No, because likely if there's a significant change, it's gonna have to come to negotiation anyway,
Right.
and that will track with our negotiations.
Just briefly, Kevin, it's not because of schedule, but is there any rule that says conferences have to be in person or have to be remote? Because I was surprised this year that the middle school conference was remote, and I had always been used to having it
Mine was in person.
in person.
Mine is awesome.
Really? So, because I wasn't even offered in person, so then I didn't know if there was a rule change.
There should always be an option.
So there should be, okay.
I would have taken the remote one.
So, yeah,
I mean,
the feedback opportunity has been, it's been helpful, and it's definitely something I think with the new principal coming in to help also establish and use the feedback from community as well.
Is there a concern that not enough parents are taking advantage of these conferences?
I think there's some, so we have an intern this year, so she's bringing in what her knowledge is from other schools and taking feedback that she's getting while she's here. I think I'd like to talk with the new principal about what their experience is in other schools and what is more common practice now at middle school. I think because we have the time, the expectation is that a conference is available for any parent who wants it. And it's not my understanding that it's playing out. But it should be an open invitation, sign everybody up, and if we need spillover time, we'll find spillover time. I also understand it's they have 80 parents, where at the elementary they have 20. So I just think we have to come to a better understanding about what's hearsay, what's reality, what was intended, what was misexecuted, and just come up with a clearer set of expectations.
I guess as the middle school parent, my perspective is if you want to talk to your teacher, if you think there's an issue with school, come talk to the teacher. If your kid's happy, then don't worry about it. And, you know,
And I think
that's my,
and I think I've got two schools of thought.
yeah.
One that may be where I would align with my personal perspective, but what is our obligation as a school community if we're providing all of this time in the school day for these conferences? Are we actively engaging parents to let them know that this opportunity is here for them? Or are we leaving it too much on the sixth grade parent to understand that you should let us know if there's a problem? Should we just default to that, or should we be trying to pull people in a little bit more?
There might be a different need between the sixth grade and something like that.
True.
It's true.
So I think it needs work. I think it needs work.
I think there's something to be said for keeping it as part of the structure of the calendar year and like create as part of that structure, then it's more likely to happen, whether and happen out of respect for teachers' time, like happen within the school day. You know, ideally, obviously, if there's a pressing issue, you email your kid's teacher, but like, you know, the expectation is there and the norm is there. So therefore, maybe it's more likely to happen. But I agree with you completely, Pam, and I'm happy to hear, you know, your takeaways as far as middle school conferences and how it's communicated about. I think you hit the nail on the head there.
We have some work to do.
My only other specific thought about the calendar for the 26-27 school year. I know that it's no school November. It's very hard to find full weeks of school.
There's less in February, so I'm just gonna, but yes.
With the parent conferences on the 29th and 30th of October, and then a half day on November 4th, and then no school on November 11th, and then the Thanksgiving break, it's like 4 out of 5 weeks are incomplete. I just wonder if there's any way to shift that half day to a place that would be less basis of my personal knowledge.
You actually bring up a really good point, and it is something to note that we sort of get feedback from either side of the, you know, to draw attention to it. You know, the Wednesday right after you get back from winter break as well is another one of those like, really? We just came back. The flip side to the feedback was the original, my first year, I didn't know what the established practice was, and I put the Wednesdays to like remove the, you know, kind of maintain uninterrupted weeks and to not have them be back-to-back vacations. And I got a lot of feedback of like, it was not predictable. I didn't know when they were coming. People who have to organize childcare or work, it like became really complicated for people to know what Wednesday. It was like random. So a lot of feedback was like, that was not helpful for families in their planning. So it's sort of the bit of a challenge, right, is trying to make sure that this calendar, you know, is supporting the educational routines of our students, but also we understand that, you know, we got to make sure that our families are well taken care of within it. So trying our best to balance both questions. So that's why.
Regard.
We've typically started with the blueprint of every first or every second,
Yep.
but then through the iterative process and trying to meet everybody's needs, they get it.
In my first year, I didn't know that was a thing, and I blew it up, and I heard that was not ideal. So, but yes, I hear you. Yeah, it's a tricky, it's tricky, especially in that time of year, for sure.
The other thing, and this has to do with, it's a function of when Christmas falls in 26 and 27.
Yes.
But having school run through the 23rd, it just predicting absentee rates of people who are trying to travel for Christmas. Because if you travel for Christmas, it would be a big money.
And that was one of my,
It's the 24th.
one of my questions was, do you want to go with a half day on the 23rd, or would you prefer us just go 21, 22 and call it after that? I think one of the reasons why the model is using the 23rd is because of Juneteenth. And Juneteenth will be celebrated on the Monday. So
Like Friday,
Uh,
the 18th. Yeah. Sorry.
that's okay.
Yep, it will be recognized. So in
So it would
in the
put up days on the
27
Monday.
calendar, yeah. So the current last day of school, assuming there's no days, which, you know, New England, is the Thursday, the 17th. if you move the 23rd to a full day off of school, the last day of school with no snow days is Monday the 21st.
Yeah, so
Because
that-
Friday, the 18th would be.
I would be perfectly comfortable if you decided full day on the 23rd works, because there's no way you escape a full year without.
Or
snow days. So you're likely going to Monday.
You can't come back on the fifth then, like why? Because right now, so.
We do.
You do go back on the 4th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm reading.
So
wrong.
I
You
think
can
that
back on the fourth, you're off on the, have a half day on the
It's
second.
the strange timing of when Labor Day is
Very early.
and when.
Late, very late this year.
Very late Labor Day.
So
I have an
anyway,
opinion on this one.
yes,
So,
That will say Christmas.
no, what, I don't want to say Christmas, but on the 26, 27 calendar, it's 2.5 days on, 2.5 days off. It's like, that's a split. I would rather take that half day and not deal with it at the end of the year. But when you're talking about the 27, 28 calendar, then we're talking about that you're really very much into the very end. And so it might be worth considering not having, like, ending on the 22nd and having the 2 days off there, because we will, that's just a lot.
I agree, especially with the last day of school being June 14th.
Exactly. Capacity.
Well, you would be, that would bump that last day to the 20th.
No, it would bump it to the 15th.
Oh, right, yes. sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, sorry. You're right, you're right. You're right.
And
Nope,
even-
sorry, I was
even
in the wrong
with,
read. You're right, you're right, you're right.
Even with the, if there were 5 snow days, you're still in the same week. It's just the next day.
yeah, so I think the gamble is if you go with a half day, you're gonna end on the 17th. Unless there's a snow day, then you're coming back on the Monday. Anyway, if you take the full day, you're guaranteed to be coming back a day in 27.
26, 27, or 26?
27.
Yeah.
Half day. Your last day of school is June 17th and 18th as a holiday.
Are we voting on these separately or together?
This is feedback.
Oh, okay.
This is just feedback. So think about it. Let me know your thoughts. I would say more likely than not, you'll be coming back on that Monday anyway, so you can look at the 23rd either way you want to. I don't think it's gonna, once snow day puts us into the next weekend. So there's no way we're gonna be the same party. So you can go half day or full day, depending on what you think is better for.
I do recall a recent year when the kids had to go back on the Monday, right after a long weekend. I don't know that there was any educational value to it, but I think that the kids actually enjoyed it because it was like their loss. It felt like summer started over the long weekend and then they got to see all their friends again.
So the question is, do we want to take a gamble? I'll let you guys sit with it. Let me know your thoughts. Yep.
In 27, 28, if you push it out,
Mhm.
then instead of finishing the 14th, finish the 5th.
Yes, so I heard Teresa's feedback of in the 27, 28 year, which I can't believe we talked about these years.
Yeah.
That the 23rd is a full day off, which would translate the last day of school that year to be the 25th. I'm sorry, the 15th. I keep
Yes.
messing that up. This holiday. I'm sorry. I have a mental block about
Yeah.
talking about the year 2020.
But then that at least
My brain is shutting down.
At the end of that week, for people to be getting ready
Right,
to their,
snow day.
their
Off.
balconies. Yes.
Then it won't be snowing. if I'm sure.
Be way too warm for that.
We'll plan on. Can I ask you a outside the box question about 26, 27? Is it teacher contract or some other that we have to start the week of the 31st, like that first week of September, or like what if we start in the previous week? I know, outside the box,
The week before Labor Day.
Yeah,
That's
so
week.
it has to be the week before Labor Day.
Thursdays.
I figured as much, but I thought I'd. Because starting at the end of August 27th week is not. Like it, I think we started August 27th, 28th.
Because
Recently,
the way-
maybe this.
Whenever it
this
has
is
to
the way
do
that
with
they're
the-
doing it. Like, right. So the week before, it doesn't matter, the week before is in August or so.
Okay.
Okay. Any other feedback to?
Calendar will be short. That was cute.
Thank
Oh.
you.
Thank you.
I think that's hopeful. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so I think we are set to
Chat about the budget.
wrap up the budget.
And I think that's the intent.
So tentative budget work?
I guess I'll start by saying what I want to do is lay out some ideas and then take some feedback. So if I could maybe get through the ideas before we dive deep into each of them, it might help to see them as a package. So, and we purposely didn't send this ahead of time because I want to walk you through it. Okay, so this is hard to see. I'm going to put it up. So you get one sheet. One is kind of the guide of the questions. And one is the, and I have the, there, one's up bottom. And one is two financial charts that hopefully once I explain them will make more sense than if you just look at them. That your eyes will. So what we know is that we don't have any real concrete information with which to alter the budget at this point. We are gearing up for presenting a new iteration of the budget on January the 28th. 27th. So to help us develop that, got a few questions. For a few ideas that I want to get your take on. So if we go with the sheet that has the text on it first. What we want to do is get some feedback on each of the concepts. The concepts work together. So that's why it's important to kind of could let me get through the big picture overview of what they are. The information is going to help us with the next iteration. And then we realize we are presenting these ideas to you tonight for consideration. You might want some time to think about them and formulate some ideas. We are suggesting we might want to do, we can do it virtually to make schedules easier, like a workshop session either this Friday, I'm away next week, so either this Friday or on the 26th, the Monday before the meeting. It gives us plenty of time to update any budget documents that we'll need for that night. And then we have another stab at it going into February 3rd. So I don't think we're under the gun to get it done, but some of this may need follow-up discussion. So let's talk about it and we can figure out whether or not we want more time at the end. So 5 basic concepts. Some of them are things we've talked about in the past. Some of them are follow-ups from the last meeting. 5 things we're looking at to help come up with an iteration of the budget that's more typical in growth to an average year. So around that 3.5%, maybe 4%, given the conditions of the economy and the markets at this point in time. So if you recall, our original budget was right in the mid 7s, 7.2, 7.3 increase. So our goal is to try to get it down 4 points between now and then. So we don't have concrete information on health insurance premiums, but we have a good indicator that it's trending down. So they're saying 17%, 15% off of the 20% that we originally started with. So that gives us a little bit of something to start with. And we're going to keep working and use all of the tools that we did last year out to market, negotiation, looking at Maya to see if we can't get that number closer to, ideally, if we could come in at 10%, I think we could have a decent year without a lot of cutting. So you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So we think healthcare is going to come down a little bit. Reserves came up last time. Should we start pulling reserves out? Should we keep them the same? I would recommend if you take them out, you're going to have to either cut something or charge somebody more money to account for it. So my recommendation is that we keep them flat. So we're at 600 last year, we stay at 600 this year. And one of those charts is going to show you how, with a combination of your E&D and your stabilization between now and 2030, you can manage your reserves. You're going to decline in your overall percentage. You're going to be around that 3% range in the end, but you should be getting an infusion around 28 from the borrowing that will help you to replenish stabilization. So we can dig into the chart a little bit more in a minute, but keep use of reserves flat. So that stays a constant in the budget. Instead of looking at increasing your use of reserves, I would say, look at your OPEB contribution and consider moving to a flat rate as opposed to continuing to grow it over time. So right now in the budget, you have an expenditure to pay the OPEB trust its contribution this year in the $800,000 range. That's double contribution from FY18, right? It was in the 400s. So if you look at it, and that's on the flip side of your sheet, if you moved to a $300,000 contribution this year, which would reduce your expenditures by about $500,000, that would go a long way toward lowering the gap and getting us close to our normal growth range. You could talk with the association about that being the new model going forward. For the foreseeable future, it would be more of a flat rate contribution. At a flat rate contribution with the interest that we get on the OPEB trust annually, that would still put you at growing your OPEB reserves of at least $1 million every year. So it doesn't stop working toward full funding. It might slow down your rate of getting it. But by slowing it down, you've reduced your expenditure without taking out program or teacher or anything like that. The other bucket of lever we have is school choice. I'm going to suggest keeping it flat this year. We have 2 students exiting. I would suggest that we replace those 2 students, siblings first. If we don't have siblings, then looking at K or 6th grade, depending on the pool, depending on enrollment, and just replacing those 2 students. It doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't move us forward or give us more revenue. But what it does do is hold that school choice offset flat in the budget. So we're not losing anything.
And why would you not increase? Or reasons unrelated to budget?
I think it's right now, I don't know. I think school choice becomes a very distracting conversation during the budget season. If you grew to 100, it would be placing 14 students. That would be very, I think, difficult for us without tapping into placing more heavily at elementary. You could put 5 in 6th grade, but you're already carrying 10 school choice students in your 7, 8, 9 year from work that we've done in the past. So you already have about 10% school choice in those grades where we would typically put it. So I would say we would go back to the kindergarten year. And I think that just brings up a debate, which distracts from the overall budget, because the $20,000 we might be gaining isn't going to change the trajectory of the budget, but it's going to take a lot of energy away from some of the components that we should be discussing more heavily. That's how I'm coming at it this year.
You have a question, Bill?
So then, because we aren't looking at the school choice revenue, we like to put out there for consideration general 2.5% increase to athletics, pre-K, transportation, and facilities rental fees. And then ask the committee for feedback on exploring implementing a K-12 student activity fee. Very back of the envelope, very conceptual, and it's not developed. But we will work on developing it if there's some will to pursue it. A student activity fee, that would be something along the lines of 100 for K-5 students, 150 for grades 6 to 8, and 200 for high school students. Those numbers could go up or down depending on the research we do throughout this process. At this rate, if you assume 75% of students participate and pay the fee, you gain somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 additional revenue to help offset stipends and transportation for student activities. So if there's interest in it, we can get into it in more detail and come up with some more particular numbers.
Can you just give me a quick example of what student activities would have a fee associated with it that don't currently?
All after school activities.
So like chess club, for instance.
So is chess club us or is it Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so like that, so coming just mainly more experiencing Memorial, a lot of it, we're already paying Parks and Rec to do yoga or chess club or whatever. What are can I have some idea of what?
Yep, anything, if you look in the contract, anything we pay a stipend for.
Like
So,
rock band.
Okay,
like rock band, chorus, band, your yearbook.
Versus also a class.
Hmm?
So Florence also a.
Well, how about we,
At the elementary, it's like,
How
so
about we
if you're
go through-
interested in it, we can come up with a whole proposal with all of these.
I'm just curious, what are Like,
Yeah.
what is?
Okay, how about we just finish that and then we can pull questions at the end. I think that's just. Keep going.
Then if everything breaks our way and we get health insurance premiums somewhere in the 10 to 15% range, then we're looking, depending on where it lands, somewhere between 250 and 500 in an annual spending reduction. The higher the premium percentage increase, the more we might still need to find in the budget. We bucket all of these things together. That should put us in the range of getting down to like that high threes, like mid to high threes to 4%. The other thing we're going to suggest is that we go back to a model we've used in previous budget years, but not in the past year or so. In that we adopt the budget in February with the conditions we know at the time and an assigned number to be reduced in March. So that the business of what we reduce and how we reduce it is at this table and when we have clearer information, because it is likely we're not going to have that final healthcare number until after February break. So it allows us to plug that in and then determine more clearly whether or not we need 100,000, 250,000 or more and kind of program expenditure reductions. Like I said, if it all breaks well, we're closer to the 250 and we've already identified, I would say about $100,000 to $130,000 in some things that we could do differently for expenditures that would get us there. So I think we're saying is we're very optimistic that we can get us to a normal range. If healthcare doesn't go off route,
And that's if you do all of these things.
if we do all of these things.
So even if we require a student activity fee, we would still need to, on top of it, reduce the budget by 250 to 500.
The more the better healthcare goes and the more revenue we gain, the less we'll have to reduce. And that's a ballpark right now, Joe. Like we have to dig in a little bit more. It's
Or push for greater budget.
Mhm.
So we would still have that open. In other words, we're saying, okay, if we can't increase the budget, then we need to allow for a decrease in this amount. So we can increase the budget. But we don't need to.
Yeah, I think what I haven't said directly, but I will say is I think I would suggest that this year we need to come in as close to a typical budget growth rate as possible, given the state of the world and the unknowns, but that you're more tied to your communities and you can give me feedback if you think it's a year that we can push the number. I know both towns are dealing with the same things we're dealing with federal funding and reduced dollars coming in and trying to stretch every penny. So I think the game plan would be to have our budget come in as it would regularly to the extent we can. So if you want to take a quick look at the two charts, it just tries to illustrate some of the financials. So the one that doesn't have any yellow shading is just the one that shows you the reserves and how you could hold steady on E&D and then start to decline your use of E&D and offset that with some stabilization and some potential minor OPEB deferral. So this does not implement the OPEB strategy. This shows you what you could do minimally. You could also increase the amount of, you could change these numbers, right? You could go up to 400,000 in stabilization and 300,000 if you want to maximize your OPEB the impact of your OPEB deferral and get more money into your budget. So there's a bunch of different things we can do. The key thing with these two charts is that what it tries to do is map out a pathway to your override year of FY30. And then the top set, it assumes that it takes it includes a look at historic spending of reserves in the budget. So we typically were returning at least 50%, $250,000 to $300,000 per year back into E&D at the end, which means about 1 or 2%. So it's not, it's not that there's a whole lot of room, but we aren't exceeding our budget either. So if you assume at least 50% of what you put in reserves will be returned in the form of E&D at the end of the year, that's kind of your burn rate in the top category. If some people are saying, yeah, but you've been saying you're going through them fast, and how do you know that it's not going to change and if things are tighter? The bottom bar shows you the illustration, 75% burn rate. So you're returning only 25% of what you put in reserve in any given budget to the following year. But it shows you how you can manage if you hold them steady and use your two different reserve funds, not pulling that piece out of the budget until probably FY 30.
Which would mean, targeting the major correction to our budget in the 2030 time frame.
And then this just shows you the impact of going to more of a flat funding for OPEB model. And it assumes your annual deferral, meaning cost cut to your budget is 570 with 300 going in, and it will show you in that outer line here how you're even at a $300,000 flat rate contribution, you're still going to grow a healthy amount in your OPEB funding over the years. And again, top is a 50% burn rate on your E&D and the bottom is a 75%. So these are just some things for consideration, things we're thinking about to try to balance the budget. Okay, hit me.
How do you want to do this?
I think we should do a round robin maybe for our first round of questions, because I think. Well, or, how would you guys like?
It makes sense.
We can just raise hands too instead of going around. Okay, why don't you go first?
I just want to say that I am so impressed by this and so excited by this because it lays out a plan to a firm override date that is not this year or next year. That allows our towns plenty of time to plan, that takes into account the impact on our reserves in a responsible way with a plan to replenish them. And gives us pointed direction for the discussion. And I think that just reading this and reviewing it makes me feel much more confident and ready to tackle this process. So thank you.
I think what it doesn't do, I probably should have said this.
No, just let me like this.
It does feel good. I don't know what the world is going to hand us, right? So
Right.
if we get handed 50% increase in health insurance 2 years from now and no state or federal funding, we can't predict for that, but knowing what we know today, knowing how our budgets typically go, this is the pathway forward, and we have to just, we'll probably still need to make some nips and tucks, but.
It's great. Thank you.
Yep.
I had a question for my notes.
Sure, go ahead.
For the, I think I do want to dig in a little bit to the fees, is that. So I just have a basic question and then maybe fees is a different discussion for a different day, but I'm wondering, so if we did implement these fees, are there mechanisms or programs in place where if a student is unable to pay, they can still participate in the programs? I'm assuming the answer is yes, because that's typically the case at Memorial.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So fees would not be a barrier to any student participating in a program.
Right, it's usually along the lines of, if you qualify for. Fellowship, it's already, a lot of that's kind of automatic too, so it doesn't need to be requested.
Right.
So a lot of it's automatic, and then there's.
We do temporary assistance, yeah, and it's, no kid has ever turned away because of it.
And there are no fees, there are athletic fees currently in place. Correct?
Mhm.
And so. Sorry,
This would be,
2.5% increase to those current athletic fees. Pre-K tuition as well. There's a lot to unpack here. I think we need to I think you do say here too, we need more
concept for discussion.
Yeah, constant pursuit.
Or, yeah, if student
That's it.
activity
It's
fee
concept.
is of interest, we can come back with a student activity fee proposal, but we're not gonna put a proposal together if it's like a non-starter.
I think given what Kate just described, I'm feeling the same relief. If this is like a proactive solution that is recommended by you, Pam, and keeps things manageable for our town partners, like this feels good. I think I'd be open to learning more about the fees and the fee structures and what programs are we talking, et cetera. So green light for me on that.
The only thing you said that I don't know that I can answer or even we can answer is, I think it's fair to give our town partners a budget that is in the historic range. It might need to be closer to 4% because of the conditions we're under. I don't know if they will think that's acceptable. Like, I don't know yet whether or not they're still going to struggle with that, but that's the feedback we'll need from them.
Totally better than 7%.
Yeah, it's better than what we.
Am I up with that?
Sure.
So, first of all, I also agree that I appreciate the kind of modeling that's being done here, the multi-year look. You know, I've been looking for that for a while. And that it puts options on the table, right? And I think it could help us change the conversation a little bit. And fundamentally helps us figure out how to reduce spending without program cuts. So I very much appreciate all the potential that is there. The things that worry me a little bit about this, the significant use of reserves. This is partly why we have reserves, but it would be getting us down quite a ways. I know we've all made a case for not doing as much. But this may be what we need to do. I also worry a little bit about extending OPEB payments into the future. I mean, in a way, this is the typical political situation. It's not going to be me that has to worry about that, so let's do it. But as a district, that's always a concern. And then my other worry is that even with all these efforts, we still may not avoid an override need, right? Or at least Essex, given the numbers they've given us, this still may not get us there. So I want us to be careful that we're not walking into this thinking that this avoids an override necessarily. I'm not saying that it will trigger an override, but I'm just not sure we can't guarantee that it pushes that out for any number of years. The kind of what related to that, one of the questions I have is, are the towns willing to kind of sign on to and support a multi-year strategy, right? Both towns have told us, just think about this year, right? So this would be a shift a little bit from the town perspective for us to feel comfortable enough to move on it. I'm absolutely willing to have that conversation with them. I think, I would like to push for it. I've obviously been pushing for it already, but this gives us a way to make that concrete, which I appreciate. And then to Pam's point, the unknowns are unknown. This does somewhat assume a relatively stable and relatively moderate increase in our budget each year. And, whether or not we can guarantee that, not guarantee that, but whether or not we can even, premise the approach on that, right? It's just a question for me. I'm not sure we have a choice but to assume that and move forward, because there really is, from my perspective, no alternative here. But it is a worry for me. So overall, I think we should explore all these ideas. There are options on the table that, at minimum, we can show our towns and our citizens that we made every effort we could, even if we don't go with some of these. But I think we need to work it through and give them a chance.
I should say a response to that.
Please.
It's not my turn.
Oh, good.
I think that at this table and at conversations with our town partners, I've heard consistently interest expressed in getting Essex Elementary School built on a timeline at which it is currently in the pipeline. no, like not wanting there to be delays. So, given, I think in my mind, this budget is presented with that vote in mind. And so if you're someone who is in favor of getting Essex Elementary's needs addressed in the current timeline with the current pipeline, then you would be perhaps more inclined to be on board with the trying to figure something out so that there doesn't need to be an override and then a school budget, a school building code.
Well said.
That's just an observation on, I think it was like your third.
Yep.
Very much appreciated.
To build on that, Jake, I would say, I'm trying to figure out where I view my responsibility between override like how much I think we are in charge of the override lever, right? And I think that as long as we are keeping our growth as responsible as possible and as close to the historical normal rate of growth, I feel like if I can hand over a budget that has accomplished those two things, that I feel good about it. And I mean,
Justified.
and I feel justified in it. I may not feel good about it, but yeah, I feel justified about it. And it then gives the town the choice whether they will put that to an override or whether they will find another way to meet that. To pay that bill.
It's funny because when we were talking this afternoon, I don't know if it was about aha moment, but in my mind, we're not active. The example I gave, we're not actively pursuing a large program expansion and trying to pass that cost on to taxpayers. To me, that's a deliberate like we are coming out and asking for an override because we want to build some more tech and career path learning here at the high school. So we need $500,000 to $1 million to invest. To me, that's a direct add to the budget. We're signaling to the taxpayers, we can't absorb that. And we need you to support this endeavor for us to go forward. That would be the school going out for an override.
Right.
We keep finding ourselves where market forces and inflation are outpacing the town's ability to pay. And we've gotten to a point at sometimes where we cannot manage it internally, and then we've asked for assistance. So I think this year we're trying to do exactly what you said, which is pull it back to the extent we can to that normal range. And then we're not asking for an override, we're asking for a typical year of financial support. And we don't know what that means for the towns. We know they're struggling too, but I don't feel that puts us in a position of actively pushing for asking for more than is reasonable in this given point in time.
I agree. And I think that my knee-jerk reaction about student activity fees was no, absolutely not. But framing it in this way and thinking about it reasonably, if we are paying teachers a stipend to provide these enrichment activities for our students, I think it is reasonable for us to pass the cost on to families who are able to help pay for those programs. And as Lindsay said, not every family will be able to, and not every family would be required to, but we provide a lot for our students.
I think I would say originally or a few years ago, I was probably there, but I'm also very interested in building more structures and mimicking the athletic structure for student activities in general. I mean, it still runs pretty much like when we were in school, and that served its purpose, but I think we would benefit from having a more structured registration process. I think there might be a little bit more pressure for quality control. If people are paying the fee, we can actually have better head counts on who's participating and what when. So I think it'll be a little bit of a lift. So but I think it's got a lot of value, and I think it kind of dovetails with some other initiatives that we have going on to clean up some of the after school stuff, because we offer a lot for kids. We do pay through the contract for it. So I think it's time for us to take that on. It hasn't always been at the top of the priority list, but
And there's a precedent. If you take programs from Parks and Rec, you're paying.
It's a discount to what you pay a third party provider anyway,
right.
so.
So I
I appreciate
appreciate,
claw back a little bit of that money for Lake West, if we're successful in. Make
Because
it,
if I have to pay for my kid to
Well,
participate in
make
it.
it accessible.
Yeah, we have band now.
Did you,
I appreciate the work you did in this. One thing I want to say is I feel having a multi-year approach and generally approach you laid out is being responsive to the school community and the students. I'm looking forward to not having to bring students and loans to here to plead that we not axe programs that were so meaningful, are so meaningful to their journey at school. So, very strongly we owe that to our students, that we take that into account. And that would make every year seem a crisis. So I do this as a more responsible, not saying that you were irresponsible in the past, but really trying to be responsible and saying, how can we try to create some stability? Putting aside the unknowns, which, if they came to pass, we'd have to deal with it, but at least in terms of the factors we do have the ability to control, showing that we're responsible and that. And I think the other thing is it reflects the reality we're in. I mean, I've seen you, Pam, year after year, try to make cuts where cuts are possible, and it gets to a point that what are you cutting, right? You're starting to get at things that really make the school what it is. And I think this budget is consistent with that, the outcome.
Try to find what we can, we try to leverage retirements if possible, so I think that's the direction we're going in for that. 250 or 300. Hopefully it's 250, 300.
But again, at some point, if you don't replace people who retire, that may impact course availability, right?
That's where we can still try to leverage enrollment if possible.
But thank you, Brent.
Yeah, well,
so my comments in general are just,
Unopened.
yeah.
Um. So, I mean, in general, I have concerns about, potential plans to leverage our OPEB contribution and what that would mean, not in the short term so much, but in the longer term. I think from my perspective, I'm pretty much 100% on board with leveraging OPEB funds, especially in years where our healthcare costs are at such an extreme increase. What I'm not 100% sure on yet is, if we look at using OPEB funds over a 5-year period, I mean, next year with, any type of luck at all, maybe our healthcare is only going up by 7 or 8%. I might feel a little bit differently about using OPEB funds for that. So I would just have a general concern about if we're going to put it into the budget, and I just know how these things go. If it gets put into the budget, then all of a sudden it's in the budget, right?
Well,
And
In our
I'll
favors, I think
discuss
we have to have a conversation when we go into negotiations next year, just about kind of changing course.
Right.
It's funny because the OPEB expenditure is growing at the rate of our insurance premium, so it's really grown quite a bit more than I think we originally anticipated.
which is why I'm totally fine in high years with scaling that back, but in closer to a normal year.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I would be. Like you mentioned, Jake, and I have the same concerns about just reserve use in general. I like this plan, and I guess just really to back up and start off, I would support exploring all 5 of these options. Like I would absolutely support that. But just where my concerns lie are in what I just mentioned, right, in reserve usage. And then really the third part is, I'm very cognizant of how we trimmed the budget over the years, and would be very interested to see what that looks like, because that's also just an area of concern to me, because I know we have been right sizing and trimming quite a few years, and I know that we're at a point where how do we inflection point where that's not going to really be possible anymore. And I think we're
It's no
kind of
longer
there
right.
last year.
It's no longer right sizing.
Correct, yeah. So I know that there's always areas that we're continually, every single year. You have done an amazing job of looking at that and where we can find any potential efficiencies, but I know that we're already very, very close to that. I understand retirements and, so a teacher retires, they're at a higher level pay scale. We're able to bring in a new teacher at a lower pay scale, and I can help sometimes. So, I understand that. So, there's some of that there. That's fantastic. But in general, I'm just very cognizant of considering budgets at this point where there's meaningful impact to our should be our number one, priority of stakeholders, which is our students. So just to keep that in mind when you're that's all I'll ask. Otherwise, let's see what we can do, because the bottom line is every single year that I've been doing this, I'm always trying to get to the lowest potential budget impact we can for our towns and our taxpayers, and I hope we do that again this year.
One thing to note on the reserves on the pathway is if I have every reason to believe it's going to be successful with the Essex Elementary Building project. If you're not, FY 28 could be your reevaluation, right? It's asterisk as a year where you would be getting a potential influx of revenue from interest. If the world goes in a direction we can't even anticipate right now, we may be. We can't let our brains go there, but if for some reason we're off track with the project, then we might want to reevaluate in that year what the next few years looks like, or whether you want to move something up or start to pull out use of reserves then. But this does assume some level of stability, even in a crazy world, and that the Essex Building project goes on track. It does get people's approval. So a couple of caveats.
And again, just so some of our new members are clear too, again, I think we already covered this, but this is, talking about potential year 2030 or a long-term plan. It is, there's a very big difference between its direction in our budget and then what the towns decide to do with their budgets and their costs. So.
And it is a bit of a clip. I mean, it's a clip. It's basically letting people know we're going to continue to use reserves, but at this rate, even if it's flat, we're going to run out of option. So in FY 30, we're either going to go forward and correct and regenerate the revenue through a tax increase, or there's going to have to be substantial restructuring. So it gives you time to have that conversation about, and I think, Jake has brought that up many years ago. It's like, if that's really where both communities want us to be, then that's something we can undertake. And there's always opportunity in problem solving. It also can give you an opportunity in there to potentially look in 28, 29 at the regional agreement. It's going into that and see if there's anything that you want to do.
But just so everyone understands the financial impact of using reserves as well. Every year, even if we keep reserve usage flat, every year that we continue to use reserves in our budget, then takes away from, and that compounds, takes away from that budget increase that year. So it compounds the eventual correction that needs to be done. So, I can just like the previous town administrator in Manchester, that's brought the idea multiple times about in an ideal world, there should be, small corrections to a budget every year. Due to the nature of Prop 2.5 and what that means. This is not that.
But how would we, because I remember that comment, and this is what I'm hearing you say, is we're reacting to a reality, and the towns have also other factors, other capital expenditures and what have you. So
the time task for correction is not when, ideally the time task for correction is not when interest, cost of living is soaring, healthcare is soaring, or everything else. That's ideally when you want to use your reserves. but that still sets you up for just an, you just continues to get higher.
So you had mentioned the word crisis before, and I think we talked a little bit about this afternoon. I think the problem we find ourselves in is we started using reserves in a set too early because others believed there was a crisis and believed that they needed to be spent down and believed that there needed to be. So we started using them prematurely because now is when, if we had not been using them, we could have more easily handled last year. But so we had a lot of crisis conversations when it was really just a difference of opinion of how you should build a budget and what percentage growth was accepted. So we're a little, I think that's why we're in a little bit of a situation now when the conditions are saying, yes, you should, it's a good time to use reserve to help weather these storms and these inflationary periods. We have less reserves than we want to manage them. So we're on a bit of a timeline. Because in a perfect world, we could have started last year and escalated a bit each year through 30 to give us some growth opportunity. This just says we can hang on without pulling this number out and creating the need for greater expenditure reduction by holding them flat. Because that's where we started some of the conversation this year, like, should we be reducing the number of reserves for use? So I couldn't recommend that because you're just creating cuts for yourself. So this is kind of the culmination of all of the decisions and all of the discussions, the situation we find ourselves in a crazy world, how we can kind of hang on without doing too much damage for the next few years.
Okay,
Unless you want to pass the job.
I don't.
You be sure.
Go for it.
John will be able to smooth things out. He's like, I'm trying to do this. Okay. All of my comments on the first 4 categories are leading to the 5, which is, so I'm going to start there, which is, I have concerns about doing all of these things and still having 250 to 500,000 in reductions. So my first, the only question I think that I have is, I understand what we're saying here about the strategy of adopt the budget with identified reduction amount. Healthcare might go down, retirements, that sort of thing. The thing I'm not confident about is, I know that when we say there are cuts to staff or program, we don't have any say over where that technically comes from, but it is usually part of the conversation. And so,
Yes, March, here at this table.
okay. So that's part of my concern, is that if we're identifying an amount, so part of the whole point of doing this all early was that we get this done early, and then our teachers, students, and families can have some stability moving forward, knowing that no, we're not addressing any program cuts, or yes, we are, and here's the areas they're likely to be in. And so this to me feels like we're now just dragging it out another month of instability for them. That's just a general feedback. Things like healthcare and retirements and that sort of thing, I understand. If it's not going toward cutting staff and program, I get that strategy, but I'm not, a thing that I'm really aware of right now is this year on year of having these months of, am I losing my job? And that's a concern. So going to that end, my questions or my comments on this. Yes, I am in favor of pursuing this reserve strategy. I think that you guys have actually been doing multi-year projections of reserve usage for many years, all the years I've been here. But at this point, it's really shown in a way that people can see it and understand better. And I think that's really helpful. I'm not sure, and you don't have to answer it, but about the impact on borrowing for when we're going out down the line, when we're spending down big chunks of our reserves, but it may just be something we have to deal with. In particular, if our towns are asking us to do this because they don't want us to pass on the cost through the bill. The point that I would ask for further consideration on, as with the Memorial Project, recommend earmark future revenue from Essex project to specifically address the middle high school needs. I understand that, and I can get behind it. I also think there might be value in considering earmarking that to either do that or replenish these reserves. And then we can choose and prioritize how we have to do that, because if we end up in 2030 without a plan.
Yep.
And a success, I would hate to have those so solidly earmarked that we can't then reconfigure. So that's just one thought. Regarding OPEB, I have every year said, let's not reduce our OPEB contribution, let's stick with the plan. This is laid out really well, and I very much appreciate seeing that. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm less worried about getting to full funding right now, because I do think that when we come to the next negotiations session, discussion of retiree healthcare has to be on the table. For at least for employees coming in new, if not for, I can understand not for current employees, but I think that has to be on the table because it's unsustainable for us. But that said, seeing that this grows. So a thing I would think of is if it comes down to cuts to program to make that gap close versus even less, I'd like to ask the association's input on that down the line if we have to get to that.
I think I'd probably want to clarify, we're not seeing significant cuts to program staff. So at the 250 or 300 mark.
Okay, so within here, with better understanding of student needs, insight into retirements, we would not be at that point.
For
We're not
example,
talking about.
I'm proposing March because in March, we're going to have a better sense of what our out of district placements
Yep.
are actually versus what we think they are in November.
Okay.
We might know or have better insight on where we might be able to trim some TAs.
Okay.
We might know of one or two retirements we don't know of now that maybe we don't need to bring somebody back in that role and we can reconfigure things. So I had this conversation with Keith today. We're not seeing the list.
Okay.
Or the list in March. We're foreseeing something in March when we have better eyes on next year.
Yep.
Of some proposals.
Okay.
Of how we can either pay for some things differently, use some one-time money from other revolving accounts.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm not anticipating
That puts my mind at ease. I'm still going to give you my comments.
that. No, I'm not trying to stop the comments.
No, but that's
I want
what you
to tell. There is not a big March.
That uncertainty, like,
Yeah.
that felt like an uncertainty that I wasn't comfortable with. That's a big no. I still do think depending on what the situation is, it might be worth that conversation with the
And
association.
I think if healthcare takes
That's
a
another
weird
one.
turn,
Yes,
I would say forego your OPEB
Exactly.
altogether this year before making cuts.
right. So
Yes.
we're on the same page there. School choice, I understand your argument about the distraction that it causes. I also think that, that this year is not the year to do it. We're too late into it. And I think we still need to have a conversation about what is right sized for this district. And that absolutely, in the time of declined enrollment, now that we're starting to see it up, should school choice increase should be on the table, especially at the higher grades where it's a shorter commitment. I know the challenges and the point of getting them early and then they're but there's a shorter commitment up at the end, and it is, there are other benefits. So if it can be justified, perhaps that's a conversation for the next year, that if we can actually demonstrate, like we've said we can, that it is a net positive and not drain, and get ahead of that argument. I do think that that's something we should definitely keep on the table for solving multiple problems. The fees are fees. What are you going to do? I would ask, I'm in support of getting a proposal. I would ask that with pre-K and facilities rentals that we're comping to other items in the area. Our pre-K program is stellar. I know we don't charge for the students who are identified as being eligible for the program, but for our peer pals. And I would hope that we're charging in the range of what private are around here are averaging.
We are the highest public
Okay,
pre-K tuition.
got it. Then that's fair.
This program.
Yeah, we are solving. And my only other issue with that is what comes to mind when we're talking about taking in fees to offset stipends is something like an Essex Elementary that has a very limited amount of outside of school things. And so when we say like rock band and chorus, which are stipend related and offered as a Essex Elementary, that's most of what's offered there. And that's also something that's been building a program that's carrying through. It's carrying momentum through the middle school. I'm seeing it. I mean, we can all see it. We can see the numbers that's then impacting performing arts at the high school as well. So I would ask that we either consider collaborating with our PTOs or something to perhaps consider that as part of because it is offered for free if you can get there right now. Somehow we connect that to the curriculum or something that be a thing that we not derail. Because I do think that families, I know nobody's turned away, but also nobody wants to ask for that. And if that's something we can avoid, great. And then my final point is similar to Kate. I once again don't know what would quote unquote trigger an override. We've asked for that information for years. We don't know. I know that the Essex FinCom's meeting tonight and the Board of Selectmen's directly posted there, which is great. So maybe we'll have some additional information coming out of that. But I would hope that if we are able to come to the table with such a comprehensive plan that has a lot here like this, that our town partners would be able to meet us in open collaboration about discussing where they can meet us and their and a commitment to that direction in 2030. If we're able to move this forward, effectively, move forward the elementary school project effectively and get toward that, it would be something that we would start working toward in open conversations, in open meetings on the table now to be building toward that. So thank you. This is awesome. A lot. Just so I'm clear, teachers at this point now, so what you're saying is if we move forward with a budget proposal like this and we are able to make these things meet, we're not trying to consider program reductions.
We're not talking about any batch this year. We are not having
Not
a
at
conversation.
In time.
Yeah.
If we are in the lower range of the 250 to 300, I don't think it's a conversation at all. If we push closer up to 500, we may have to consider some other things, but we are not looking at a list like last year.
Okay.
Because what we're not preparing for is what if our whole budget goes under. Right. So all we would need to be that $250 to $500,000 makeup depends on how many other things we can do on that list. Either generate revenue or cut expenses and where the health insurance premium comes in. So if everything breaks our way, we are on the low end of that. And we don't have to consider probably anything that's too difficult. If that pushes up, we might edge into some areas of, do we not return certain staff members who are retiring? Do we look at some?
Or the OPEB lever. I mean, we have the OPEB lever.
Let us look at what we can do. For 250 to 500, but like you have, when do we get, we do not anticipate limits. Great. But we'll keep you posted because I've also lived through, and I'm sure Michelle has in other districts. What they're telling us on healthcare today and what healthcare reality might be in March could be very different. So I guess I say this all with a caveat. This is all based on what we know today. But that is our intention.
Great. Thank you.
Nothing further.
We rest.
This is perfect.
So I guess
for
in general,
levers in one document.
so I guess in general, John, but the one thing, would you do you support exploring all five?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the fees, they're such a small percentage of the overall budget, but at least symbolically, we're saying, hey, listen, we're passing this on to the people who actually use these and not taxpayer who hasn't had a kid in school in 20 years, So it's at least something, and it shows that we're trying to be creative. Yeah.
And it is a step back from, remember at one point we were discussing maybe you should pay if you want to take art during the day or you want to take an AP course. So this kind of puts all student activities on the same playing field, pun intended, as how we're running athletics.
We do charge an AP fee, correct?
To take the test.
What's that?
Which you have to take the course, right? Okay.
It doesn't, that goes to the board.
Right,
Yeah, so the.
We don't say anything.
Pay for everything together.
Do you have to take the test?
Yes.
Yes.
That's our policy.
That's That's a big reason why kids take the AP class.
So I know, I get all that, but I would like the actually have to
Do we
Like,
want to?
get a grade in that one.
It's a course requirement. Sorry.
But if it's not a course requirement, it's not a college board.
No, I know, I'm saying, but it's in our.
Right.
Well, let's reconsider that then.
No,
Just kidding.
I also read it. Do you want to look at putting a working session together for either the 26th or this Friday? Or were you comfortable at our level of discussion here tonight? I wasn't sure whether, we weren't sure whether you'd want some type of process and then come back together for another discussion. If you think you've given us enough, the next iteration will go from there.
This is good.
This is great.
I would like to learn more about the fees, but that doesn't have to be necessarily at a workshop.
No, we can bring back what we can do is do a little bit of work on fees. It'll probably take more than just between now and the 27th, but we'll come up with a little bit more of a detailed estimate for a whole number of budget structure for it.
Yes.
Are the fees something that could also be a lever depending on where that 250, where that
Absolutely. You will get some benefit just from existing fee increases.
Yeah.
And then adding in the student activity fee on top of that could be in addition to.
Yeah, like I just baseline, like I want to know like what's the ballpark of fees that we're talking about, like a grand a kid per program, right? Like what's the
No, that's the thing, right?
2.5
General, sorry, I was unclear.
I see, great, okay.
General user fee.
Phew.
So you might want to say, okay, it's.
We were just seeing this, so I didn't really get to do the deep dive.
We're figuring $100 for elementary, maybe it's more
Annual.
like $50. It's kind of a. We'll take a look at the number of programs and maybe it's $250 for high school because they have the lion's share of heavy travel, heavy hours, or $300. I think I did pretty. Yeah.
That helps.
We'll do a little digging, come up with a little bit more structure and develop a little bit of more detailed estimate to build into next, but.
And I would say there are some activities that require like, it's because I just got that, that. That's happening.
Yeah, and there's different nuances with that. I'm sure you did a lot of all that work, like there are some activities that also have a lot of other costs associated with them, right? You need to rent an instrument, for instance, or you can get, whereas high school sport uniforms include so I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
nuances.
So,
to all of that.
If you looked at the contract, there's two different kind of, and we're trying to parse out even greater detail of the types of stipends we offer. There are some which are extensions of the day, like the band director stipend is really an extension of band director responsibilities for performances associated with the course. So this is kind of more your traditional the fun things for kids that you have an advisor for, but there's travel related. There's time and travel related to it, and the stipends are a significant amount in our budget.
There's a lot of it in high school and I've heard over the years parents saying, I would pay for this.
Yeah.
As long as we have that, and because the high school does offer a ton.
since you brought up the late bus. Is it,
For our newer,
well, but so here's,
Go.
it had low usage. But now we own these vans. Couldn't a van just live at Essex Elementary? So that at the end of the day, one of the stipend positions is driving a van load of students from the high school to Essex Elementary.
The vans cannot be used, pick up or drop off for after school.
But they
They
are.
can only use for activities. They can't.
Right, so it would be for kids who participated in an activity.
Yes, but it can't be to bring them to a home place to be released.
It can't be to bring them to Essex
Yes,
Elementary.
It could bring them from this school to that school, but that's it.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but
So
you-
that drop off would then be at Essex Elementary. For parents to save 25 minutes, half an hour, whatever.
We just couldn't have buses.
Yes, and we kind of looked at it for a couple of things that we wanted to make it available for kids who wanted to do that special STEM.
Yeah, I
program.
remember that.
if we really want to do it, we're gonna need another van, because the vans are usually out when we would
Okay.
need them to be doing the drop off.
Okay.
So we would have to,
No, but even for a late, but that was after after a normal activity would be over.
yeah,
So,
'cause most days they're out at
Sometimes they're
a tournament or an event. or-
yeah,
So to allow for the regularity of it and the,
right.
and making sure it's available and there on a daily basis, you probably. But we can cost it out.
I like where you're headed that.
We're also gonna be doing the bus bid. There can be some, we're hoping there's a limit to gain on that too, but.
And I'd like to ask for a cost of a late bus in that bid as an alternate, so yes.
So just, sorry, we're talking about like not needing to meet, which is a budget workshop meeting, which is fine, but I think what we do need is a roadmap for how are we bringing this to town partners and gathering feedback or reactions from them, and what's the timeline on that? If this requires their buy-in or their commitment, and we're looking at a
Or
cliff
awareness.
without it, or awareness, is that something that? Yeah.
Collaboration group.
Yeah, we can definitely schedule that. The question is timing.
Do you have anything on the calendar?
We do not.
We can go right after our next meeting. That's probably what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
But it's need to develop it into something that they can look at instead of concepts. So maybe toward the end of that, like the 30th.
So perhaps one way of looking at this then would be, because in terms of getting feedback and those things happen there, and then you don't always hear all of it. So if you're going to schedule an open collaboration meeting to present what we've gone through in the next iteration of this, then perhaps the request could be, if the town boards wish to submit feedback for the whole committee to consider, rather than just talking amongst themselves in that meeting, to submit it either as public comment or in writing for us to consider in time for that February
Well, we'll have the February 3rd
meeting.
hearing.
Right.
Where we would expect
That's
to
okay.
come and
Yeah.
give that
And give
feedback
that, okay.
publicly inside Essex.
Yep.
If we stick on our timeline.
Yeah.
Try to close and adopt a budget on the 10th.
On the tenth.
Knowing that there'll be a figure in there that we'll go to work on.
Right.
It's basically saying, this is the adopted budget. We have an unidentified reduction that we're going to identify as a school committee throughout March. But they'll have their number to work with next.
So yes, my point just being to make it clear, please be prepared to share, like, talk to your boards, not just in this meeting of who's here, but talk to your boards and give us official feedback so that the whole committee can have the feedback that your whole committee has discussed and wants to bring forward.
So we'll look at calendars after.
Yeah, what I can do is throw a few dates out
Yeah.
to
The whole group.
you guys. Well, I can provide to everybody and just say which one of these would work.
Maybe we should do it just with the two of us first, so you know which ones we're available for, and then. Yeah, all right, sounds good.
All right, so any other questions for Pam and Michelle? Michelle, you've been very quiet.
Okay, I'll just say that I will leave open, Michelle and I have already blocked in our schedules that Monday, the 26th, in the middle of the day, in case you go home and you're like, thought I understood this, but I didn't, and I really would benefit from it. So let us know if you think it would be helpful to have like a touch base on that day to go over anything. Otherwise, I think I have a general sense that everybody's on board with the general concepts. Let's flush it, let's develop out some things a bit more, but we can build it now into the budget document where you can see how it all might play through.
Yeah, the ones, but revenue generating activity I thought is, I was very interested in the literature classes offered senior year. Is if we opened it up to community members who weren't participating. It's like, darn it, I would love to be in high school taking these classes.
We could start a public health ed operation if we wanted to.
Their activity
this
fees
year.
are a lot.
Just that.
Their activities fees are gonna be a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying it wouldn't help.
With the budget issue.
I would think. Imagine how mortified our children would
I
be.
did say, maybe let's keep it separate from the kids.
Yeah.
It was like intergeneration. I love this discussion,
Next up, is there any additional school committee comments? Right, then I'll make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
You said that, okay. Yes. Second.
I'll make it to John.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All those in favor? Yes, you know this.
My one question is that we have to talk about this level 3 syllabus.